Okay. Are we live? We are live. Excellent. Oh, that theme sounds so nice. After being away for a couple of months from this game, oh, that theme sounds so nice. Alright, so hi. Mani wishes she could get a Discord account. I'm not sure how that would go. But yeah, last time we had a pretty exciting reveal, honestly, that I kind of spunked on about in the visual novel section of the Discord server, because it showed me the scene that really made me appreciate this game's writing, and it was the scene in, I think, the chapter "The Usual Place." According to a wiki that has a list of all of the chapters for Sachi's route, which apparently we still have quite a ways to go. Looking at the list of chapters here, we still have quite a ways to go. So it's probably going to be a couple more episodes at least to finish out Sachi's route. I really don't know how much more there is. But I know, we're having at least a couple of episodes ahead of us. There we go. But yeah, the scene at the playground where we really got some insight into how Sachi thinks and what she's there at the academy that we are at for this game. And more importantly, how Sachi seemingly knows more than she should about Yuuji. Yeah, that really opened my eyes to just what the level of writing we're dealing with this game. Made me appreciate this game more than I did before. Do I have this written in my notes? The name of the academy from the game here? Do I have that written down anywhere? That's right. That's right. No, that's the name of the principal. Do I have it written down somewhere? Oh, that's great. I wrote down in my notes, Machina is like a cat, and I added a note in parentheses, future me is rolling on the floor laughing. No, I'm not seeing the name of the academy in my notes. Now I'm gonna feel like an idiot. I don't remember what the name of the academy. That's gonna kill me. Not knowing what the name of the academy they're at is called. I'm gonna keep my notes minimized. Yep, just getting started, mates. I'm excited to continue after the reveal that we got last time. We reached the chapter The Usual Place, where we get a pretty significant reveal about Yuuji and Sachi's past relationship. We're on Sachi's route, as the title would suggest. And yeah, we just finished the chapter The Usual Place at the end of the last episode. I have a list of all the chapters pulled up here. And yeah. And I'm typing it out as part of the event message. Yeah, that they knew each other as kids. I really loved the way that scene was written. You know, that was one of my favorite parts of the game so far. And I want to see where this goes from here. Because I was like, wow. Like, Sachi continues to impress in the weirdest ways. Like, you know, that she actually remembers, you know, that far back. And actually has the absurd patience, you know, to sit there and wait for over a day. You know, literally, you know, through the pouring rain. Uh-huh. I imagine it does. I will eventually have all the routes done on this game. And I really do mean eventually. Because if it's taken us, you know, 12 episodes to get to, and I'm not exaggerating, the 7th to 8th chapter on Sachi's route, we're in for a long ride to get through the rest of the routes. we still have a lot of chapters left in Sachi's route. According to this list I've got here. Yeah, it's a long fucking game. I'm well aware of that. I just can't wait to see where things go from here. Ah, yes. There we go. We had a good run, Discord, but... We had a good run going the last couple days, but you forgot to update the title. You had a good run going the last couple days, Discord. But you fucked it. You fucked it. One of the longest VNs you played, and that's because of the common route alone. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the common route is pretty damn long. From what I remember. Epic embed funeral. God damn it. Oh, good shit. But what's new with you, man? Nothing much, just house hunting. Ah, I see, I see. Oh, that's just the cherry on top. As soon as I go post it somewhere else, it finally updates the title. Guys, Discord heard me. And it was like, oh shit, we should fix that. No, I don't want to find anything on Discord. I just want to... E. Yeah, having any luck with that? Yeah, I'm predicting we'll have at least a few more episodes on Sachi's route before we finish it. Here and there, it's a tough market. Understandable. Understandable. Yep. I'm actually gonna keep this routes page up, because it has a list of all of the chapters for all of the routes. So I think that's actually a good thing to keep handy, just so I can, get an idea of where I'm at with each route. Let's see. Ooh. Don't know what this is for, but... I had to guess it's for a particular game. From the Team Relations server. I don't know what this is for, but it looks neat. So shout out to whoever made that. No. Alright, let's do it. I'm gonna minimize Discord here. By the way, let me know if the volume is too loud. This game's music is pretty loud in my headset, and I have it turned down on the overlay, so I don't think it should be a problem, but just let me know if it's too loud. Anyway, let's do it. Alright, so we were outside the academy. Ah, that's the name. It was killing me before I... It was killing me a few minutes ago. The name of the academy. Could not remember for the life of me from 2 months ago. Could not remember what the name of the academy was. Mihama. Okay. Mere moments after I pick up the sound of a well-tuned V8 engine approaching, a familiar yellow prancing horse pulls smoothly to a halt in front of my eyes. I think I know who this is. Hello, JB. And a split second later, the person I've been expecting emerges from the driver's seat. That's okay. It is appreciated. Yeah, I do, and I appreciate it. Right on, Yuuji. When I offer her a few straightforward words of thanks, JB furrows her brow. No, she's not used to this with Yuuji. This is not normal. Something wrong? Uh-huh, she was expecting Yuji's typical sarcasm. She was not expecting a serious answer. My bad. Baka. Right, you're talking about Sachi, aren't you? Because I remember something about this from a previous chapter. As JB speaks, she holds out a single manila envelope. Really now? Right. That's why I had to ask you, Julia. Mm-hmm. Thanks. I owe you for this one. Well, it seems like he's just being straight with you this time. JB shrugs her shoulders as I take the documents from her hand. Yeah, he likes to joke around, but he's serious when he needs to be. It's not that I don't trust Shizuru, but I prefer to get my information from a familiar, reliable source. Okay. I don't know what these were for, why we're receiving these. I don't know if it was explained earlier, or if this is the first time it's come up. I don't remember. No problem. Yeah, they all do have their own things going on. I see. I was more or less expecting JB to read the documents before handing them over, but judging from her vague language, it seems there was indeed something fairly dramatic inside. Right. Right. I think we went to Principal Tashibana trying to get info on Sachi. Because Yuji's becoming more invested in Sachi. You know, why she's here. Especially after the reveal last time. Don't know yet, but if there's something I can do for her after reading these, I think I will. She answers my words only with a searching gaze, her expression unusually serious. I stare steadily back into her eyes. For a moment, there's silence between us. She returns the favor. You're not opposed to the idea? Okay. In other words, you trust me.
そうね。これでもあなたのことはよく知ってるつもりよ。
She's like, well, yes, but actually no.
何せ私はあなたの友人であり、上司であり、保護者なんだから。
Is that how that works? True. With my master and my older sister dead, JB is without a doubt the foremost living authority on the subject of me.
ただ一つだけ釘を刺させてもらうけど、あなたがこれから何をするにしても仕事は今まで通りこなしてもらうわよ。
Yeah, I mean, I think this was just part of the expectation of our employment. Yeah, of course. That was the plan.
その言葉が聞けて安心したわ。今は予備役扱いとはいえ、あなたを頼りにしている人間はたくさんいるんだから。
Uh-huh. Apparently satisfied, JB gives me a friendly thump on the shoulder as she passes by.
それじゃあ、私はそろそろ戻るわね。
Right. I appreciate the help, JB.
感謝の気持ちを表すなら、今度高級イタリアンでもご馳走してちょうだい。
Some 3-star Italian, eh? Well, can't go wrong with that. Well, I'm always up for some good Italian. Shit, I had some lasagna from our deli for lunch today. Good shit. Returning to her usual playful tone, JB deftly brushes a loose strand of her thick golden hair into place, then steps back into her car. And off she goes. Yeah, I'll make a note of that. As the prancing horse grows small in the distance, I mutter wryly to myself. Returning to the courtyard, I sit down on a nearby bench and examine the contents of the envelope that JB handed me. At a glance, it's 6 pages filled with text, almost certainly printed from a personal computer. So now I've got my hands on Sachi's past. What's more, I managed to obtain it quietly, from a source with absolutely no connection to these events. For JB, it was probably a simple job involving nothing more challenging than a few minutes of database crawling on a neglected terminal. But this way, if and how I make use of this information is completely up to me. This is random. What's going on here? When I open my eyes, I'm staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling. Shit, don't tell me you fell asleep outside with the documents. Oh, come on, don't do me like that, Yuuji.
ここは
Oh! Oh. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, that's not Yuuji. That's Sachi. That's Sachi's inner monologue. Okay. Okay. My bad. The lights are off, and there's only faint illumination flowing in from the window. That's right. I believe, had her sent to the hospital after being after being outside and in the rain for hours and hours. Because she probably came down with hypothermia or something. She obviously was not in a good state after over a day of waiting outside there, neglecting her personal health all the while. But as my eyes grow accustomed to the darkness, it doesn't take long for me to realize that I'm in a hospital.
そうか。私、公園で気を失って。
Yeah, you did. Sami-san must have carried me here afterward. Judging from the tuna fish man figurine standing watch at my bedside, Maki-chan and others paid me a visit.
風見さんは、ゆうくん。
Uh-huh. Kazami-san and I played together as children. For a time, he was a very dear friend to me. I realized as much some time ago, but I don't believe that knowledge prompted any dramatic change inside me. Therefore, I had assumed the same was true for Kazami-san, that he had realized the truth long ago and simply decided to keep things as they were. Well, we found out the other day, no, that is not the case. But in reality, he never associated me with the girl he knew back then. To him, the usual place was somewhere else entirely. Mm-hmm. Really getting, we've started to get some really nice insight into the way that Sachi thinks, which contributes to why she's at Mihama Academy. The thought makes my heart ache. For some reason, when I close my eyes, I see Kazami-san's sorrowful face looking down at me in the playground. As I remember that moment, the vice gripping my chest grows gradually tighter.
おかしいな。私、もう悪い子じゃないはずなのに。みんなの言うことを聞く。いい子でいれば、ここが痛くなることもないって思ってたのに。
The more I think, the more sluggish I feel. It's as though a heavy weight is pressing down on my body. Goodness, I'm alone. If someone else had been here, I'm not sure I could have been my normal self for them. You don't have to be your normal self right now, Sachi. You've got to learn to focus on yourself once in a while. You've got to learn to, be a little selfish. Sometimes, you have to take care of yourself. Sometimes, you just have to be there for yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're only going to end up hurting yourself in the long run. After all, I'm currently incapable of something as simple as reaching over to turn on the lights. If my physical discomfort is accompanied by a building sense of panic, inexpressible in words. Horrible choking sensation crawls slowly but steadily up my throat. It's like moaning coherently, my hands reflexively clutch at the blanket draped over my body as I squeeze my eyes tightly closed in an attempt to shut out reality. It's no good. The harder I try to repress the memory, the more clearly it rises to the surface. I know that it's the cause of my pain. I simply can't escape that image. Perhaps it's because I'm weaker than usual after my long wait in the rain. Yeah, that definitely has something to do with it. As I wince at the first throbbing stabs of a sudden headache, overwhelming weariness washes over my body. Just keeping my eyes open seems unbearably burdensome. My field of vision grows narrower as my eyelids fall halfway closed. I can faintly hear the sound of my clenched teeth rattling in my mouth. It feels as if the temperature of the room has plunged, to the point that I almost expect my breath to form white clouds before my eyes. I think this is what hypothermia is. I roughly gasp for air, panting like a dog, helplessly enduring the unceasing waves of pain. She sounds like she's hyperventilating. Eventually, it becomes difficult to tell whether my eyes are open or shut, and as my physical agony reaches its climax, it's joined by an unfathomably profound sense of loss. My trembling hands creep upward, seeking reassurance that my head hasn't simply been lopped off at the neck. It's all right. That couldn't have possibly happened. I understand that rationality, but the delusion is so vivid that I can't bring myself to lower my hands. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. As a child, when I first suffered these symptoms, the doctor who examined me dispassionately offered that diagnosis. Severe mental illness brought on by violent wounds to the mind, leading to a persistent range of stress-related impediments. I've researched the disorder and its symptoms in great detail over the years from every source I could find. The many symptoms, the one I truly fear is clinically referred to as recurrent involuntary memory, more commonly known as the flashback. Oh, so is this why she's at the academy? You know, I'm gonna do a little research of my own here. It's not even one of the first results when you type in, recurrent in. And when I type, recurrent INV, it just becomes about a bunch of investment shit. And then invoices. I guess it's technically classed as involuntary recurrent memory. Psychological phenomenon in which an individual has a sudden, usually powerful re-experiencing of a past experience or elements of a past experience. Yeah, so it's psychological in nature, which is about what I'd expect for Sachi. Interesting. Hang in there, Sachi. If I curl my body into a tight ball like this, I can endure the pain and exhaustion somehow. Oh, I just want to hug her right now. The worst of the suffering is yet to come. I begin to imagine that moment. Tears flood out of my eyes, and I shake my head from side to side, like a spoiled child throwing a temper tantrum. Warm drool dribbles out of my gaping mouth as I rack my dry heaves. But my groans give way to convulsive sobs. The voice acting is killing it. The voice actress is killing it here. This is how it always happens. Through enduring the pain, I see the dream. As I've tried so very hard to forget, force their way into my mind, still vivid and clear after all this time. The profound darkness buried deep inside by my own conscious efforts pushes its way back to the surface. How many times have I seen this dream since that day? Your idea of trying to count seems rather ridiculous by now. I'll never escape this nightmare, will I? Never. It'll be with me for all of eternity. And the nightmare begins, as always, with two words.
Hachi.
Oh. Oh, we're going back in time here. We're going with her on this trip down memory lane.
おかえりなさい、サッチ。
今日の学校は楽しかったか?
The workshop was constantly filled with the clamor of industrial machines, but when I shouted out a greeting, my parents never failed to put down their work and answer. My gentle mother, who always smiled like a freshly dried laundry, and my smiling father, whose face was constantly smeared with grease and oil. I loved them both very much. My earliest memories from the days before I entered elementary school are all wonderfully happy. My dad was a metalworker and engineer from Niigata. My mom was born into a family that operated a small precision manufacturing workshop in Kanagawa. About 20 years ago, they met at a technology fair and fell in love. Soon enough, they'd started up a little factory of their own on the outskirts of this small city. I was born shortly thereafter, completing an intimate little family of 3. Aww. That's cute.
あなた、どうしましょう。サチが泣き止まないわ。
熱もあるみたいだし、すぐに病院へ連れて行こう。
Oh.
でも、夕方までに納品の仕事がまだ。
そんなのは後で頭を下げればなんとかなる。それより、サチの命の方が大事だ。
So they put their child above their work. They deemed their child more important than their work, as any good parent would. The orders placed at that freshly established workshop tended to be small in scale, and its track record couldn't have been called excellent even as polite flattery. the primary cause. My parents prioritized their newborn child above all else, frequently missing important deadlines for my sake. Yeah. They probably should have waited a little bit to have their first kid, you know, if they were starting a business. But, you know, things aren't always planned out the best way. And I mean, these are good folks, you know, looking after their kid. Despite their inconsistent job performance, their character won respect and affection. Our young family was able to get by thanks to the support of others. Later.
ねえねえお母さん、お買い物一緒に行こう。そうね、そろそろお夕飯の準備もしないといけないんだけど。
ああ、仕事の方は心配しないでいいから2人で行ってくるといい。
すみません。
いいさ、どうせもうすぐ片付くしね。
お父さんの好きなおビールも買ってくる。
ありがとう、サチ。
Even once I got a little bigger, I still spent lots of time with my parents. Especially in the evenings, I'd always pull at my mom's hand and beg her to go shopping with me.
サチは今日何が食べたい？卵ふりかけ。ふりかけじゃなくて、ハンバーグとかすき焼きとか、もっと好きなものを。
Salisbury steak sounds good right about now, not gonna lie.
サメさん。
Shark.
サメさんはちょっと。
Yeah, Sachi, seafood is expensive, don't you know?
サメさん食べられないね。
Not easily.
そうね。サチはサメが好きなのは知ってるけど、できれば別のものにしてほしいかな。それならサチ、タコさんウインナーがいい。
I'm getting the impression that Sachi really likes seafood. You're not making this easy on old mom, are ya?
ごめんね、サチ。どうしてお母さんが謝るの？サチ、お母さんが作ってくれる目玉焼きとタコさんが一番大好きだよ。ありがとう。私もサチのことが大好きよ。
あらさっちゃん、今日もお母さんと一緒でいいわね。
Aww. This is such a wholesome scene. Thinking back on it now, our household was definitely on the poor side. You could count on one hand the number of times per year a real treat of a meal graced our dinner table. But Mom's cooking was always delicious anyway. More importantly, I loved the feeling of her soft, warm hand wrapping around mine. Hey, what makes them special is that they're homemade meals. That's what matters, man. Fortunately, the adults around us watched over our family with warm gazes and small acts of kindness.
いやあ、こいつはサービスだ。
Oh?
いつもすみません。
いやいや、うちも駅向こうにできたスーパーのせいで大変なんだが、
Oh, jeez.
小峰さんには変わらずひいきにしてもらってるからね。
ありがとうございます。おじさん、いつもおまけしてくれてありがとう。
その年でちゃんとお礼が言えれた。偉いね、さっちゃんは。よーし、それならおじさん、唐揚げ用のお肉もサービスしちゃおう。
Oh my goodness.
本当にすみません。
Oh my god, the wholesomeness is killing me. I love this. This is great.
こりゃ後でかみさんに怒られちまうかもな。
Probably, but it's worth it, right?
今日も一日お疲れ様です。
あ、お前もお疲れ様。
Oh.
お疲れ様。
I love this game's writing. Surrounded by Mom's cooking, we thanked each other for our daily labors as Dad tilted his beer glass. And the dishes in front of us were about halfway gone, and the glass sat empty in front of him. Dad would always sit back in his chair and start to tell me a story.
なあサチ、サチはエッチングって知ってるかい？
聞いたことない。あなた、 サチはまだ5歳ですよ。今からそんなことを知っている方がおかしいわ。
So this happened when Sachi was 5.
そうかな。俺がサチくらいの頃には親父の仕事場に潜り込んでは勝手に機械をいじってたもんだったが。
だってサチ、工場の機械を触ってるよりもお人形さんと遊んでる方が楽しいもん。
Well, you two just had different ideas of what fun. You just had different ideas of what was fun, you know?
やっぱりそうか。サチは女の子だもんな。
サチは大きくなったらお母さんみたいなお母さんになるの。
Yeah, so she wants her own family.
サチ。
おお、サチは嬉しいこと言ってくれるな。じゃあおもちゃのお人形さんを作っていたお父さんの親戚の家の話をしてあげよう。
お人形さんの話だったらサチ聞きたい。
Her mom is still trying to process what Sachi just said. Dad's stories were almost always connected to his job somehow. Even so, it was fun to hear about new things, and I was in awe of him for knowing all that super complicated stuff. What always impressed me more than anything else was his amazing handiness. He does strike me as a handyman.
この時、電池を変えても動かないの。
Uh-oh. Probably got a dead battery. Or you put the battery in the wrong way.
ああ、どれどれ。通電してないみたいだな。
Oh, no, it's nothing to do with the battery itself. Goddamn cheapskates cutting corners.
時計、また動くようになる？
あ、これくらいならすぐに治るぞ。
お父さんす
ごい。壊れた時計くらいならお母さんの機嫌を直すより簡単。
He's definitely venting a little bit there. Dad loved playing with machines from a very young age, so he could repair almost anything. Because of that, the things we bought tended to last much longer than they would normally, and I always thought of him as some kind of wizard. Yeah, that's one thing I kind of lament about today's society, that a lot of things, are made to be disposable. They're not made to last, And I really resent that.
ねえねえ、お父さん。
What are you looking at?
ああ、これはオルゴールっていうんだ。
オルゴール？この箱を開けるとね、音が鳴るような仕掛けになっているの。
Mm-hmm.
へえ、そうなんだ。サチはオルゴールを見るの初めてだったかしら？それにね、なんだかすごく素敵な音がした。あら、サチは素敵なんて言葉よく知っていたわね。昨日見たテレビで言ってたの。
Look at that, she actually learned
なる
something.
ほど。それでサチはこの曲のことを素敵だなって思ってくれたのね。とっても綺麗な音だった。
He's a smart cookie.
サチがそう言ってくれるとお母さん嬉しいわ。どうして？
このオルゴールに入っている曲はね、お父さんとお母さんの結婚式で流した思い出の曲なんだ。
Oh, that is so precious. That is so precious. That the song Sachi really likes is the one that played at their wedding ceremony. The one in the music box. That's a really nice touch.
結婚式？
Sachi doesn't know what that is at her age, but...
そうね。好きな人と幸せになるためにする約束みたいなもののことよ。
Yep.
幸せ。幸せっていう字はね、サチの名前と同じ字を書くの。
The kanji character.
そうなの？そう。だからサチも 大きくなったら好きな人と結婚して、きっと幸せになれるわよ。
What a bean.
そっか。じゃあサチも大きくなったらお父さんとお母さんと結婚する。
No, Sachi, not like that. And I mean, she's 5. She doesn't know any better.
お母さん、うちにボイスレコーダーはあったかな？
もう何言ってるんですか、あなたは。お父さんはサチと結婚したら嬉しい？
ああ、嬉しすぎてサチのことがもっともっと好きになっちゃうな。
そっか。でも好きな人と結婚するためにはサチがもっと大きくならなくっちゃね。
Mm-hmm.
はい、サチもっと大きくなれるようにたくさん牛乳飲む。
From that day forth, the sound of that music box became a familiar part of my life. The gentle melody that accompanied our family gatherings felt almost like a symbol of happiness itself. I always understood that Dad loved me just as much as Mom, although he was often busy with work. And since I happened to love him very much myself, I had a habit of begging him to play with me on weekends.
ねえねえ、お父さん、お外に遊びに行く？
Ah, the late 2000s, when people still played outside.
おお、サチはいつも元気だな。
日曜日はね、お外でお父さんと遊ぶ日って決めてる
Is that
の。
right?
そうか。
Is it now? That's exactly what I would
だから
say.
お父さんも一緒に遊ばないとダメなんだよ。
Oh my goodness.
そうだな。じゃあ今日はお父さんと公園でキャッチボールをしようか。
キャ
Fun.
ッチボール？
よーし、いいぞ。そしたらここにめがけてそのボールを投げるんだ。
Careful what you wish
ボ
for.
ールを
Throw the ball.
おお、うまいじゃないかサチ。初めてでここまでできるなんてすごいぞ。
She impresses.
ああ、お父さんは運動ダメだったけど、そういうところはお母さんに似てくれてよかったよ。
I'm guessing Mom was in at least a couple of sports. I think Dad probably wanted a boy. Not that he ever came out and admitted it, of course. When he watched me tossing a baseball around or playing soccer, his eyes were livelier than usual. Once I caught on, I started begging him to play with me even on weekdays, eager to see that happy expression on his face. Of course, Dad had his work to take care of, so he couldn't tag along every time. As a result, I sometimes had too much time on my hands. One particularly dull afternoon, I decided on a total whim to imitate Mom and clean the floor of the workshop. And when I did, ooh, I'm guessing this is where she ran into problems. Cause she probably did it at what, she didn't realize it was a bad time.
あら、サチ、ほうきなんか持って何してるの？お掃除だよ。
Let's find out. I might be wrong.
偉いじゃない、サチ。進んでお手伝いをしてくれるなんて、お母さんとっても嬉しいわ。ねえ、聞いてあなた。サチが工場を掃除してくれていたのよ。
何？本当か？
ええ、あなたもこっちに来てサチのことを褒めてあげてください。
My parents showered me in compliments, almost like the time I'd brought home the first prize for a picture I'd drawn in kindergarten. I blushed with joy. Their initial reaction was surprising enough, but after work that day, both Dad and Mom came outside to play with me.
お母さん、こっちこっち。あら、サチもいつの間にかそんなに速く走れるようになっていたのね。
I don't know.
それより 二人とも少し
Yeah,
は手
he's
加減して
definitely
くれ。
not the athletic
こ
one.
っちの体力が持たないよ。
だね、今日はサチお母さんと一緒にお父さんをやっつけるんだもん。そうね、そうしましょうか。
おいおい、勘弁してくれよ。
I don't know, man. I'm lacking context. As long as you're having fun, though. Oh, this is great. We laughed and played until evening came. For one day, the machine sat silent in the workshop. In exchange, our house was filled with the resounding melody of the music box. From that shining moment, I was left with a powerful new conviction. It makes mommy and daddy happy when I clean up. If I do it again, they'll play with me more. Motivated by that simple thought, I began to clean the workshop and our house whenever I had the time.
ほらお父さんお母さん、お仕事もう終わったんだから一緒に遊ぼう。
わかったわかった。もうすぐ片付くから、せめて着替える時間くらいは待ってくれよ、サチ。
ダメだよ、早くしないと砂場が他の人に占領されちゃうんだから。もうサチったら。
And sure enough, whenever I cleaned up for them, my parents would emerge from the workshop with resigned smiles on their faces. Witnessing that same scene play out countless times, I'm sure the neighbors had me down as a slightly spoiled little tomboy. Not that I noticed at the time, so caught up in every precious moment. Back then, my world consisted of nothing but the things before my eyes, the places my short legs could carry me, and it was more than enough. But eventually, my way of thinking did undergo a clear change. That day, a little while into my first year of elementary school, I proudly brought home my first perfect test.
すごい、本当に100点だわ。ちょっとあなた、ちゃんと聞いてます？
ああ、すまない。あまりの驚きで思わず呼吸が止まってしまっていたよ。
いくらなんでもそれは驚きすぎですよ。
A little
そうだよ、
bit.
お父さん。
いやいや、決してそんなことはないぞ。お父さんも何度か100点は取ったことがあるが、算数のテストで取ったことはなかった。
Hey, what's up, Sarah?
サチは運動神経がいいだけじゃなくて、頭もいいんだな。
Yes, yes, she does.
そうね、今日はサチが初めて100点を取ったお祝いに腕によりをかけてごちそうを作らないと。本当？やったー！
At the time, I was a very simple person. Being praised makes me happy. When I do well on tests, mom and dad are really nice. And the food at dinner gets better too. That means I'm gonna get good scores every time. Having reached that conclusion, I shifted my efforts to my studies. Please listen carefully in school, and at home I'd voluntarily head off to my desk and pore over my books.
今度は社会科のテストで100点か。
クラスで100点を取れたのは私だけだって先生も褒めてくれたよ。
Yeah, so she was top honors.
最近はうちでも勉強を頑張っているみたいだし、学期末にもらえる通知表が楽しみね。
The harder I tried, the more my parents complimented me. The more effort I put in, the wider the smiles on their faces. That was all there was to it, but as simple as I was, that was more than enough to motivate me. As I focused on that clear objective, my grades soared with astonishing swiftness. I bet they were very, very high.
はい、今日はサチが全部4以上の通知表をもらってきたお祝いよ。
Yep, sounds like she nailed it.
手巻き寿司だ。サチは最近頑張ってくれているから、その分私たちもお返ししなくちゃね。お返し？
そうだぞ。何かのために努力するってことは口で言うほど簡単じゃない。
It absolutely is, and I think it's something that's, easily overshadowed nowadays.
だからそれができたサチのことを褒めるのは当然のことなんだ。
Not many people are willing to put in the work, to be the best.
あ、今回はサチが頑張ったご褒美にお父さんが何でも買ってあげるぞ。
Careful what you wish for, Dad.
何でもなんて言ってしまっていいんですか？
See, I'm on the same wavelength as her mom.
たまに
We're in a
はいいさ。
flashback scene right now, if you hadn't
何でもい
guessed,
いから言ってごら
by
ん、
the way,
サチ。
Sarah.
欲しいものあんまりないかも。
Dad's like, what? No way.
お父さんとお母さんに褒めてもらえてお寿司が食べられるならもう何もいらないよ。
Sachi's just happy with what she has. She's a very humble young lady.
サチ。
Those were my true feelings. Of course, sometimes I did look at the pretty new clothes my friends wore and felt a little envious. And I sort of wanted to visit those fancy amusement parks they talked about on TV, too. But when I went home after school, Mom and Dad were always waiting. The music box played its beautiful song in the background, and the people I loved had smiles on their faces. That was more than enough for me. Like I said, she was such a humble young lady. I kind of love it. What's happening? Oh, really? One day, word got out that Dad's family had received a contract for grinding lenses that would be used on a space shuttle, leading to media interest in a TV interview. We'd contributed intricate metal molds that were now valuable manufacturing assets. With the sudden burst of publicity, a few major orders started trickling down to our workshop as well. Dad had always been skilled, and now he had the chance to prove it. Blink of an eye, rumors were spreading about the high-quality precision dies our workshop produced. Before we knew it, our little branch of the business was flooded with more orders than even his parents' workshop. A year or so after these events, my life had changed dramatically. Later. Back from school, I yelled out a greeting to the workshop and forced a habit, but there was no answer from Mom and Dad. Instead, I was welcomed home by the drone of industrial machines, a constant companion from morning through night. At the dining table, a gorgeous meal was waiting for me, but the clouds of steam that proved the food was freshly made were missing. The pencils I used to wear down to the nub had all been replaced with nice new pens, but I no longer heard Dad's encouraging voice at my side as I studied. Yeah, that burst in popularity forced them to focus more on their work and less on Sachi. And, that definitely became apparent with the way her home life changed and the work environment. I could wear all sorts of brand new clothes, but Mom didn't sew shark appliques onto my dresses anymore. Among all these, what hurt most was the simplest change of all. I no longer spent much time with my parents. Producing metal dies is precision manufacturing, requiring both high technical knowledge and natural skill. It was extremely difficult to find qualified new employees for such a small business. Dealing with a workload that had suddenly doubled with the same number of people as before, there was no choice but to increase working hours proportionally. Yeah, no kidding. They definitely need help, and I'm not sure they're gonna get it. The amount of time Mom and Dad spent in the house became extremely limited. The amount of time I spent alone grew dramatically. Even so, I wanted their attention just as badly as before. Sometimes I would sit up waiting, rubbing my drowsy eyes until the machines finally fell quiet.
お疲れ様、お父さん、お母さん。
ああ、サチか。
こんな時間まで起きていたの？どうしてもお父さんとお母さんに見てもらいたいものがあったの。見てもらいたいもの？うん。ほら見て、今日は初めて理科のテストで100点を取ったんだよ。
おお、そうか。偉いな、サチは。
Mm-hmm. I can tell, the dad's just trying to keep it together after a long day of work.
おめでとう。
I've been there. They're both, I think, just trying to keep it together, but they just don't have the energy to give Sachi the praise that she wants. When I did, my parents would still listen to what I had to say. But even then, they didn't smile like before. Their faces were always lined with exhaustion, their eyes dull. I knew they were busy because Dad's family had been on TV. I just had to tough it out a little longer and things would go back to normal. I did my best to believe that. I waited as patiently as I could for my parents to get less busy. Then diminishing, the work kept pouring steadily in. After 3 months, then half a year, the situation didn't improve in the slightest. Yeah, so that boost in popularity gave them notoriety, which led to an increase in business. In fact, things eventually got so frantic that my parents hired a housekeeper to look after things. Man. She cooked and took care of the laundry in Mom's place. She accepted the handouts I brought home. When there was a parents' night at school, she was the one who showed up. The housekeeper was a diligent person who took her job seriously, and she was always nice to me. But that wasn't enough. For some reason, I never felt particularly happy when the housekeeper patted my head gently and praised my achievements. No, it's not the same as your actual parents showing you that kind of attention and praise. It's just not the same, because they weren't part of the family before. It's just not the same thing. So one day, taking advantage of a brief pause in the feverish activity in my parents' workshop, I rushed up to Mom and tried to show off my latest test.
ごめんね、サチ。お母さん、これから取引先の会社さんに行かないといけないの。何時になったら帰ってくるの？多分、とても遅くなるから。また今度ね。
The problem is Sachi doesn't know when, next time is. Oh. Oh my god, I just want to give Sachi a hug. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oh my god. Sachi needs a hug, man.
せっかく苦手だった国語のテストで100点を取ったのに。
Oh. Poor Sachi. For the first time, I couldn't get her to even glance at the paper. I still remember the shock and anger I felt. Crumpling the test into a ball, I threw it into a trash can. Oh, wow. And on the night I turned 9 years old, neither Mom nor Dad were waiting for me. Instead, I was greeted by a feast our housekeeper had prepared and a pile of presents stacked up on the table. But I didn't have the slightest interest in the food in front of me, much less the colorfully wrapped boxes. The only thing on my mind was conveying that simple truth to my parents, and so I sat and I waited. Even when the clock ticked past 9 and our housekeeper headed home, even when unfamiliar shows started to appear on the television, which I'd left on so I could hear the sound of human voices, I didn't budge. And a little after the hour hand on the clock crept past 11, the clamor of the machines finally came to a stop.
これで明日までには納品できるだろう。
Uh-oh. That's problem. I need that cheese for my mac and cheese. How are you, Oreo?
でもすぐに次の仕事にかからないと。
そうだな。ってサチ。
もしかして私たちの仕事が終わるのを待っていてくれたの？
そうか。それは悪いことしたな。ああ、そうだ。遅くなってしまったけど、9歳の誕生日おめでとう。
おめでとう、サチ。
Beans? That's what's up? What about beans?
最近サチには寂しい思いをさせてしまったからプレゼントも大奮発したのよ。
It's not the same.
どうしたの？サチ、お腹でも痛くなった？
よく見たらご飯も全然食べていないじゃないか。
いらない。
Sachi doesn't, Sachi doesn't, want the gestures. She just wants her parents back because they're so busy working now. She barely gets to see them.
プレゼントもごちそうもいらない。
Which is not what her parents were expecting to hear.
だから一人でステーキを食べるより機械の音が聞こえないお家でみんな一緒にカレーが食べたい。
Before I knew it, the words had slipped out of my mouth and tears were running down my cheeks. Those were the words I had kept shut away tightly inside ever since the workshop got busy. My honest, selfish feelings. First time in a while, I was the spoiled little girl again. As soon as the words left my mouth, his eyes opened wide with surprise. When that shock gave way to awkward, troubled expressions, I realized the mistake I'd just made. I just said something really mean to Mom and Dad. The instant I understood how selfish my words had been, my heart started to throb painfully in my chest. I stood up from the table and ran from the room, trying to escape the sudden wave of guilt. Aww. Man. The kid just wants her parents back. But because of that, burst of notoriety from the TV interview and the parts they made for that shuttle that went into space, they just got super busy and it never really stopped. We're in a flashback with Sachi right now. We're kind of seeing what her upbringing was like. That's kind of what's happening right now. And right now it's her 9th birthday, but because the workshop that her parents run, it has been so busy, and they don't have any other help, and are doing twice as much work as they did before. Though they're so busy that they barely get to see her anymore. So they have a housekeeper But Sachi doesn't want that. You know, Sachi just wants to be with her parents. Sachi just wants, you know, things to go back to the way they were. But obviously that can't happen. You know, and now she's coping with that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just a terrible feeling as a kid. You know, your parents are so busy that you know they can't spare a moment for you until like 11 o'clock at night on your birthday. Like that's just a terrible feeling. Tormented by this jumbled mixture of intense emotions, I cried into my pillow until morning came. That was my 9th birthday. I just want to hug her so bad. Like, oh my god. After that miserable day, I decided to change my way of thinking and start fresh. Maybe finally saying what I'd kept locked inside helped. Maybe all the crying got all the poison out of my system. Yeah. Yeah. You are spot on, Sachi. It's very good to have an outlet for these things. It's not good to just keep them all bottled up, because you know then they come you know then you know they just come out like this, you know, in a very explosive manner. Either way, I found a new conviction to cling to. If what I've been doing isn't enough, I'll just have to try even harder. Oh, so she's doubling down. Not merely devoting myself to my studies, I began to actively volunteer for class representative and other student government duties. I threw myself into anything that seemed like it might put smiles on my parents' faces, even learning to play the music box song they loved so much. What about Sweet Baby Ink games? Probably because of the broad, spirited effort, my results at school rose so high that I broke the top 10 list for our year. Grades other than A disappeared from my report card entirely. The comments were increasingly filled with effusive praise about how I'd become an example for the other students. But even then,
お父さん、今日は終業式だったから通知表もらってきたよ。
おお、もうそんな季節か。
それでね、今回は私評価の数字が全部5だったの。
じゃあこの仕事が終わったらじっくり見せてもらうから、もう少しだけ待っててくれるか？
もういい。
Sachi doesn't have the patience. You know, she has spent a lot of time waiting. In the end, nothing changed. Even when I brought home a straight A report card for the first time, Mom and Dad didn't pay attention to me like they used to. If the best possible results weren't good enough, it could only mean that my parents had started to hate me. No, that's not it, Sachi. But you know, you're still young. You don't know better. It's just because of work. Yeah, it's all they focus on, but it's because they have to. They really ought to get some additional help in that workshop. And Mafjio, good morning to you too. How are you? Oh. And I feel so bad for Sachi. No matter how good my grades got, it wouldn't make them start loving me again. They were probably working really hard on their job so they could get enough money to run away together. Oh no. The more I thought, the more dejected I felt. Why had I even bothered to try so hard all the time? Before I knew it, my legs had carried me to the neighborhood park where we'd once played together as a family.
ここは何も変わらない。
Yes, it is.
真ん中にある丸いベンチも、テントウムシの横にある砂場も。
Little tough? How so? But I might never be able to play there again. Not like I had before. I'm the saddest kid in the world, abandoned by my own parents. Suddenly, for a few moments after I'd convinced myself of that I noticed the mysterious boy. So this is where her history began with Yuuji. That's where she knows our boy from. You know, like we discussed at the end of the last episode. You know, now we're actually getting to see how things got started. You know, because we got to hear about the history, but now we're getting to see it. Oh, this is so nice. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't doing a thing, just sitting quietly on a swing, staring off into space. I'd always thought of the park as a place where everyone played all the time, so that motionless boy struck me as out of place. What's that kid doing over there? And a few seconds after that first twinge of curiosity, I walked right up to him.
ねえ、私の声聞こえてる？ だから私の声聞こえてる？ それとも聞こえてない？
She's like, is he deaf? If I couldn't hear you, I don't think I'd be able to answer.
ああ、そっか。そういえばそうだよね。
So, did you want something?
うん。あなたは何をしているのかが気になって。
Well, I wasn't doing anything, I guess.
何それ？
He's just contemplating, presumably. And oh my god, young Sachi is such a precious bean. Young Sachi is such a precious bean. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You can't see it, but, you know, I'm patting my monitor above Sachi's head. Because I just want to pat her head. Well, my sister told me that sometimes people need to spend some time doing nothing at all. I believe we call that meditation.
へえ、あなたのお姉さんって面白いこと言う人なんだね。
Certainly. Yeah, that's what everyone says.
でも公園は遊具がたくさんあるところなんだから、ブランコとかジャングルジムで遊んだ方が楽しいでしょ？
That's what you would think, Sachi, but no. Sometimes us introverts like to just, relax and think about things. Just, you know, think about the things that have been happening lately.
そう思わない？
Sometimes we need to just think, you know, spend some time thinking to put our thoughts in order. That's all. Yeah, I suppose you're right.
じゃあ一緒に遊ぼうよ。
Huh?
私はここで遊びたいって思ってて、あなたも公園は遊ぶところだと思ってる。
Well, Sachi kind of has you there, Yuuji.
だったら一緒に遊ばない理由はないでしょ？
Other than the fact that Yuuji doesn't necessarily want to.
ほら、行こう。
So what did they do together? The boy looked so painfully bored that even the saddest kid in the world had forgotten to feel sorry for herself. As he blinked up at me, completely dumbfounded, I grabbed him by the hand and pulled him along after me. That was how I met Yu-kun.
まずは何をして。ってそうだ。
What's wrong?
あなたの名前を聞くの忘れてた。
Yeah, I guess you did.
じ じゃあ改めてあなたのお名前は？
Yuuji. Kazami Yuuji.
ユージくんか。じゃあこれからユウくんって呼ばせてもらうね。
Huh?
そっちの方が呼びやすいでしょ。
What's your name then?
私の名前はサチ。小峰サチっていうの。
I have yet to play any of the other routes, but Sachi is quickly growing on me. Shachi? Like an orca?
ねえユウくん、
No, Sachi.
パンチしていい？グーで。
Oh wow, Sachi. Sorry.
それから私の呼び方もユウくんが好きに決めてくれていいからね。
I think if I had to say off the cuff right now, like if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be between Amane and Sachi. Okay then, I guess I'll go with Sachan.
やっぱりさっちゃんか。
That's the impression I got when I looked at the list of chapters for Sachi's route. And, you know, where I was after 2 episodes on starting and, you know, playing Sachi's route. Oh, please, Oreo. She's right here. Of course she's gonna hear that. She always hears what I say when she's with me on stream. Come on. You know this. It's a game. Doesn't change what I think about the girls from the game she's from. You're implying they have any. I mean, nothing else really comes to mind.
そうだよね。
After this brief exchange of introductions, we immediately got down to the business at hand.
じゃあ最初はあれからだよ、ユウくん。
Oh? The jungle gym?
そう。まずはどっちが早くてっぺんまで登れるかの勝負だからね。
Eager to get started, are you, Sachi? Wait, hold on a second. Deciding the event on a whim, I forcibly started the game. Yukun didn't have many suggestions himself, but when I pulled on his arm, he'd follow. Pretty heavy-handed, I know. Anyway, we must have been fairly evenly matched in reflexes and strength. Every game was a competitive match. I was always the winner, of course, but only by a narrow margin. That made the games much more fun, so I just kept going and going. Before I knew it, the sun had begun to sink below the horizon. Oh, I think I need to go home pretty soon.
もうそんな時間になってたんだ。
Yeah, we ended up playing a whole lot.
ごめんね、遅くまで付き合わせちゃって。
It's okay. I'll be fine as long as I head straight home.
それならよかった。
She's like, what a relief.
それじゃあバイバイ、ユウくん。
Ah, so VN over in chat. Who would you say is your favorite? Who is your best girl? Bye, thanks for playing with me today. Kind of weird for the person who got dragged around all day to say thanks to the person who's doing the dragging. It was all so odd that I thought about Yukun the whole way back home. I ended up so lost in thought that I barely touched the meal our housekeeper had made for me. Once he actually started playing, I think he enjoyed it just as much as I did. But when I was trying to think up new games, or when we stopped for a break, Yukun went right back to the expression I saw in his face at the start. Why was Yukun in that playground in the first place? It obviously wasn't to play. Maybe something bad happened at his home, too. She wanted to investigate. Partly out of simple curiosity, I decided that I wanted to see Yukun again. The very next day, I made my way back to the playground. And there he is again. And sure enough, he was sitting on the exact same swing, the exact same downcast look on his face.
こんにちは、ユウくん。
Hi.
今日は最初から返事をしてくれたね。
Well, yeah, you said hello to me again, Sachan.
だって昨日一緒に遊んだんだから、私たちはもうお友達でしょ？
I don't know. Friends?
それともまだ早すぎたかな。
No. Thanks for calling me your friend. Did I say something weird?
そうじゃないけど、ゆうくんはよくありがとうって言うなと思って。
That's something else my sister told me. People who can offer thanks to others have a happier road through life than people who can't, so... Huh.
ゆうくんはお姉さんのことが好きなんだね。
Huh?
だって昨日もお姉さんの名前が出てきたから。
He did? Yes, I did, now that you
じゃあ
mention it.
やっぱり
Yeah. Aww. Sometimes I don't really understand what my big sister's thinking, and sometimes she's even kind of scary. But she's normally really nice to me. I think I love her more than anyone else in my family.
そっか。でも今度は私もゆうくんのお姉さんに賛成する。
Really?
私のお母さんも言ってたんだ。誰かによくしてもらった時はちゃんとお礼を言いなさいって。
Yep, you were raised well, Sachi. So I guess you loved your mom, Sachan? Since you brought up her advice. Aww.
そうだね。私はお母さんとお父さんのことが大好き。
I can't tell if she's just forcing it or if she's being serious. After that slight, twinge of hesitation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if she's completely serious when she says that. No kidding?
うん。
As the conversation moved along, we slowly learned more about each other. That was surprisingly fun in its own way.
ねえゆうくん、せっかくまた会えたんだし、今日も一緒に遊ぼうよ。
I don't mind, but is it really any fun playing with someone like me?
もちろんだよ。ゆうくんも運動は得意みたいだし、どの勝負も接戦だったから、昨日はすごく面白かったよ。
Thanks. It's nice of you to say that.
ゆうくんまたありがとうって言った。
Uh-huh. Ah, you're right. But that was fine by me. For some reason, every time Yu-kun said thanks in that slightly bashful voice, I felt genuinely happy.
そういえば、ゆうくんは何歳？
I'm 10.
じゃあ、私の方が年下だったんだ。
Yeah, so Sachi's still 9. Huh? Seriously? I was so sure it was the other way around. So in other words, he's saying Sachi looks older than she looks. Sachi, looks older than she actually is.
じゃあ、ゆうくんは私の方が年上だと思って
This
た
will
ん
be
だ。
interesting to hear. I mean, you're stronger than me and I'm a boy.
あ、ゆうくんってばひどい。私が怪力女みたいな言い方して。
Oh, come on, it's not by that much, Sachi. And if anything, it's supposed to be a compliment. And man, if only she could see what that fucking She-Hulk show turned out to be. Oh my god. Sorry.
そんなに怒ってるわけじゃないから、謝らなくても大丈夫だよ。
Really? That's good. I'd only been trying to tease the slightly timid Yukun a bit. When he smiled with sincere relief to learn that I wasn't upset with him, I was surprised to feel my heart flutter briefly in my chest.
そういえば、ゆうくんはどうしてこの公園に来るよ
Now
う
she's
に
being
なったの？
serious.
もしかして聞いたらダメなことだったかな。
No, it's okay. I just came here because I didn't want to be at home.
やっぱり家で何か嫌なことがあったの？
Not really anything bad, but I didn't want to be in the way.
邪魔？
Oh, yeah. You might not believe it, but my sister's what they call a genius. If she just studies a little, she can win first prize at anything. That's how smart she is.
あ、すご ごいんだね、ゆうくんのお姉さんって。
Yeah. But lately she hasn't been winning that many awards. At home she's been paying more attention to me than her paintings and stuff. Oh, so is she an artist? Dad got really angry when he noticed that. He told me, "You useless trash. Kazuki's actually worth something. Don't drag her down with you." Damn, boy! Wow, okay. Hot damn. So I try to stay out of the house as much as I can, to keep out of my sister's way. I don't think Sachi's going to take too kindly to hearing that. Sorry, not really an interesting story, is it? No, I think it's actually going to get Sachi fired up.
なんかじゃない。絞りかすなんかじゃない。
Huh?
ひどいよ、そんなこと言うお父さん。ゆうくんは運動が得意だし、ゆうくんと一緒に遊ぶのはすごく楽しい。
What did I tell you, people?
それなのに、お姉さんの絞りかすだなんてひどすぎるよ。
Sachan?
ゆうくんはゆうくんでいいんだよ。だから自分はいらない子だなんて思っちゃダメだからね。
I hadn't intended to cry, but I really was angry at Yukun's stupid dad. The way he didn't belong in his own home reminded me so much of my own problems. They sort of got jumbled up together in my mind. I couldn't help shouting that it wasn't true, that I wasn't unwanted. Sorry. Don't cry, Sachan.
私の方こそごめんね。急に泣いちゃったりして。
Yeah, she just got very emotional over this. Because, you know, she has some experience in what that's like. And she doesn't want anybody to go through that. It's okay. Thanks for getting mad for me.
違うの、私が怒ったの。
Because something bad happened at home, right? She's like, how did you know? But that doesn't matter. You still got angry because of what my dad said.
だってゆうくんが絞りかすなんかじゃないと思ったの本当だし。
Yeah. So in return, I'll play anything you want today. For as long as you want.
いいの？
Uh-huh.
じゃあ公園鉄人レースでもいい？
Playground Iron Man race? I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting. Playground Iron Man?
うん。これを初めてやろうとした時はお父さんが腰を痛めて途中でリタイアになっちゃったんだけど。
Ah.
最初は砂場のお城作りから始まって10回連続逆上がりとか運転2往復なんかもあって。
This sounds very in-depth, Sachi.
最後は1回転できるまでのエンドレスブランコっていうプログラムなんだよ。
Endless swinging until you flip over the bar. I have never done that in a playground, and I don't intend to. That sounds a little...
ゆうくんが家に帰らないといけない時間まで昨日みたいに遊ぶなら
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
じゃあ決まりだね。
Sure. I firmly wiped the tears from my eyes and seized Yukun's hand and set off running for the seesaw. In that moment, the day sped past in a blur. Covered in sand, the two of us explored every inch of the park, playing and playing until well past the time we had to leave. And when I finally made my way home, on that second night, I discovered a clear and pleasant change inside myself. Hey, what's up, Onyx? For months, the droning sound of the machines from the workshop had bothered me so much that falling asleep was always a struggle. But that day, I was snoring peacefully away the moment my head hit the pillow. exhaustion from running around all day definitely had something to do with it. More than anything else, I think it was because I suddenly felt so happy. The part where I might never play again with my family, I'd stumbled across a nice boy my age. He was a sweet kid who said thank you at the drop of a hat, so things would definitely go well. We'd be best friends in no time. For some reason, I felt absolutely certain of that. As it turned out, my hunch was on the money. After those first few meetings, Yu-kun and I started playing together in the park pretty much every day. At first, we headed home quietly when the sun began to set, but after a while, we naturally started to say, "See you tomorrow." And when one of us couldn't make it for whatever reason, we'd let the other one know in advance. Sachan, what are you doing over there?
何ってゴミを拾ってるんだよ。
Yeah, but why?
だって次にこの場所で遊んだ時綺麗だった方が嬉しいでしょ。
Wow, you're so thoughtful, Sachan. I mean, lots of people might think the same thing, but that doesn't mean they'd clean up the mess themselves. And you did it without even thinking about it. You're kind of amazing. Yeah, to Sachi, this is just, a basic thing. She doesn't even think about it. Did I say something weird again?
久しぶりに褒められたからちょっとびっくりして。
You haven't?
昔はね、私が頑張ったらお父さんとお母さんが褒めてくれてたんだけど。
Yeah, the difference is that it became expected. It wasn't surprising.
今は仕事が忙しいみたいだから。
Okay. In that case, I guess I'll have to take over that job for now. Oh dear. It doesn't seem hard to find stuff to praise about you. I think even I can handle this one. Oh, Yuuji. Is that okay with you?
それはいいけど。
Okay, in that case. Good job, Sachan. With those words, Yu-kun brought his hand to rest on top of my head. It was far smaller than Mom's hand, let alone Dad's, and yet, at that moment his hand felt gentler and warmer than any other I'd known.
ありがとう、ゆうくん。
Yu-kun didn't just play with me, he gave me the attention I'd been craving. When I did well or tried hard, he'd compliment me right away. When I messed up or tried something risky, he'd give me a few gentle words of concern. Apparently that also had something to do with his big sister's teachings, but whatever the case, Yu-kun's thoughtful warnings made me almost as happy as his praise. Lately, I'd started to wonder why I was trying so hard when no one even cared enough to look. But now Yu-kun was watching me. I had a new reason to do my best. Mm-hmm.
それじゃあ見ててね。行くよ。
Yeah. Be careful, okay?
どう私ちゃんとできてたかな。
Yeah. You spun all the way around perfectly.
ありがとう。
That's really amazing. Not that I'm much good at the horizontal bar or anything, but I've never done a forward flip even once.
そんなにすごくはないと思うけど、今日初めて成功したから最初はゆうくんに見てほしかったんだ。
That's awesome, Sachi. Oh, really? Thanks, Sachan.
ちょ
Huh?
これはいつも私と遊んでくれているお礼だよ。
Yeah. Thanks. When I tried hard at something, Yu-kun would always praise me. Sometimes overflowing with happiness, I'd give him a kiss on the cheek in return. And more than once, I drove myself so hard in pursuit of some new achievement that I ended up passing out on the playground. That was how much Yu-kun's words meant to me. Wow. Yeah, so this isn't even the first time Sachi has passed out in the playground. Wow, yeah, okay. That's crazy. He had stepped into the gap left by my parents' absence, giving me the attention and affection they no longer would. As I grew more and more conscious of what he meant to me, my daily life was quickly transformed. I spent less and less time inside the house. When I got home from school, I'd head straight off to the playground. More than anything else, I looked forward to the time I could spend playing with Yukun. At home, the constant grinding of the machines and the perpetual silence of our music box were still painful, but I found I could endure them now. Not to say I didn't interact with my parents at all.
サチは最近よく公園で遊んでるみたいね。ゆうくんってことお友達になれたから。そうよかったわね。お母さんのお仕事頑張ってね。
When coincidence brought us together, we were able to hold slightly awkward but reasonably friendly conversations. Even so, I had stopped actively trying to regain their attention. In contrast to the steadily shrinking place my parents held in my heart, Yukun's presence grew larger and larger by the day. I wish it'd hurry up and be tomorrow so I can play with Yukun again. Ooh. Alright, well, before we go on to the next section here, before we get into the next section here, I'm gonna go use the restroom quick. So, I will be right back. Alright. I'm back. My tabby cat was sitting in the sink again in our bathroom. I don't know why she does that. She's been doing that a lot lately at night. Oh. Like I said before, I guess my sister?
そういう好きじゃなくて結婚したい人とか。
Mary? I haven't even thought about that stuff yet. Sachan, are you thinking about it already?
私
Well, you brought it up, so I thought you were probably interested.
そっかそうだよね。
Yeah, so do you have someone you want to marry? No kidding? Okay,
で
then
も
I...
ね、私と結婚するには条件があるの。
Oh. Qualified.
そう靴飛ばしで私より靴が飛ばせる
That's an oddly specific stipulation. I'm confused. Shoe kicking.
人。こうやってブランコに座ったままでどこまで靴を遠くに飛ばせるかっていう勝負なんだけど。
That sounds arbitrary and random, but okay. I get it.
だからね、ちょっとだけゆうくんもやってみない？
Huh? Yee?
ゆうくんが私より靴を飛ばせるかちょっとだけ試してみるの。
How much do you want to bet he does? Sounds kind of fun, I guess. Sure, I'll try to play. Sure, I'll play.
じゃあまずは私からね。
Confident, huh? Well, it does seem like something you'd be good at, Sachan. Wow! Whoa! That went pretty far.
じゃあ次はゆうくんの番だよ。
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not that confident, but... Wow! Guess I can't beat you after all, Sachan. Aw, he came up short. How close did he get, though? I purposely went a little easy on my kick, but I still ended up beating Yuku. Every once in a while, being naturally athletic can be a curse instead of a blessing. I spent that night curled up in my bed, bitterly regretting coming up with that stupid qualification in the first place. There must have been a better way to hide my embarrassment than that. So the time slipped steadily by, my feelings unspoken. That as my next birthday grew near, my relationship with Yukun started to change in a different way. Really?
それでね、その時はお父さんがお母さんのことを怒らせちゃって。で、ゆうくん？
Oh, sorry, I was kind of spacing out.
ゆうくんが私の家のこと聞きたいって言うから一生懸命お話ししたのに。
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Anywho, Yukun had always listened intently to my stories. This was the first time I could remember his attention wandering in the middle of a conversation. But my unease was relieved quickly enough. He apologized and listened to the rest of my story. I figured he must have just had something on his mind that day. And yet... Sachan? Do you think there's a god? Oh, we're about to get all religious now, huh? You know, one who knows everything and can do anything. If there is a god that's strong watching over us, even if things look really bad, it'll turn out okay in the end, right?
そうだね。私は神様を見たことがないから絶対にいるとは言えないけど。
Yeah, I think Sachi had a more secular upbringing. I don't think she was ever exposed to religion. Not that we've been told anyway, so...
でも神頼みって言葉もあるくらいだし、神様はとっても強いんじゃないかな。
Okay, so she does have some awareness of it. Yeah. That's gotta be right. God's gotta be really powerful.
多分。
Yeah. That's what I thought too. Thanks, Sachan. Sometimes he'd suddenly talk about God or other weird stuff. More often, he'd sit rocking on a swing, staring off into the distance with a blank look on his face. It was the old familiar expression from the first time I met him, the expression he'd stopped making after we became friends. I had a vague idea that something must have happened at Yukun's home, but I was still just a kid, powerless to offer any real help. When Yukun asked me those questions, clearly searching for reassurance, all I could do was listen, nod, and try to hide my concern. At the same time, The blizzard of work that had buried my parents for so long was finally starting to slow down a bit. The machines weren't clattering quite as late into the night as they used to. Once or twice I went home early to find my parents making small talk with strangers in suits. Oh yes. The upper management, or as you know, we'd call them, the suits. Like most kids, I did get pretty curious about what the adults were talking about. But when I eavesdropped, all I got was a whole bunch of words I didn't really understand flying back and forth. I got the idea they were talking about the machines in the workshop, but the specifics went right over my head. Yeah, it's not really something meant for you to understand, Sachi. They're probably buying replacements for the old machines while it's not so busy. Only a few days later, after I'd reached that conclusion, our housekeeper told me she'd be leaving the job. Apparently, Mom told her she'd be able to handle the chores by herself again. It was nice that my parents were getting less busy, and that Mom would be looking after the house again, but at the time, my mind was so full of anxious thoughts of Yukun that I couldn't manage to feel happy about anything else. Lately, he'd been showing up at the playground a lot less frequently. Ah yes, he started to visit less and less.
ねえねえゆうくん、次は何して遊ぶ？
Sorry, I've got something I have to do today. I have to head home now.
そっか。じゃあまた明日だね。
I don't think I can come tomorrow. But I'll play with you the day after that, okay?
わかった。じゃあまた明後日だね。
Yeah, sure. Bye, Sachan. Our meetings slowly grew fewer and further between. The loneliness reminded me of the painful days when my parents had first begun ignoring me in favor of their job. Watching helplessly as Yukun trudged away, my mind churned with sadness and fear. At this rate, Yukun's going to leave me too. I couldn't let that happen again. I couldn't let another person I loved abandon me. This time, I had to stop it somehow. The next time I saw Yukun, I decided to use my birthday as an excuse to coax him into spending more time with me. She's getting desperate.
あのね、明日は私の誕生日なんだ。
Oh, really?
うん。だから明日は私と一緒に遊んでくれる？
She's still, very, organized about how she's doing it, though. Actually, I probably won't be able to play with you for a while, Sapchan. A bunch of stuff happened at home. I think it's gonna be hard for me to get outside from now on.
そんな、急にどうして？
Turns out, there isn't any such thing as God. Oh, what spurred this on, Yuuji?
神様？
Yeah, nobody's gonna protect me anymore. I probably won't be able to play in the park like this again.
そんな。
I'm sorry. I know I should have told you sooner, but Sachan, you always looked forward to playing with me. I didn't want to make you sad.
ゆうくん。
Vanishing suddenly without telling you would be even worse. So today, I came to say goodbye.
じゃあ、ゆうくんとはもう会えないの？
I don't know for sure, but it's definitely possible.
そんな。
Oh no. And I snuck out of the house today, so I have to get back before Dad notices.
ねえ、明日は私の誕生日なんだよ。
I'm sure Yuuji is gonna wish you a good one. I'm sorry I can't celebrate it with you, Sachan. It's not gonna work, Sachi. Okay, I'm gonna go now.
待って、ゆうくん！どうして？ どうしてもう一緒に遊べないの？
Sachi, he just told you.
私そんなのやだよ。せっかく仲良くなれて、これからもっともっとゆうくんと遊べると思ったのに、それなのに突然お別れしなきゃいけないなんて。私明日も待ってるから、ゆうくんが来てくれるまで絶対いつもの場所で待ってるから。
As Yukun slowly walked away for the very last time, I yelled at the top of my lungs, more loudly and more desperately than I ever had before in my entire life. But he never paused. He never turned back. Yukun's leaving me. Maybe I was right. Maybe everyone I love abandons me. Paralyzed by miserable self-pity, I couldn't even chase after him. For a long time after that abrupt farewell, I could only stand stock still at the entrance to the park, wallowing in confusion and pain. And on the morning of my 10th birthday, rubbing my red, swollen eyes as I crawled out of bed, I immediately realized that something was different. For one thing, I couldn't hear the droning of the machines that had been running from the early morning hours for months now. For another, the smell of fresh miso soup was wafting through the air from the kitchen. Could that be Mom cooking? What about work? Still half asleep and completely nonplussed, I wandered over to the living room where an unexpected sight was waiting for me.
Ohayo, Sachi.
おはよう。
Mom and Dad were sitting next to each other on the far side of the table, almost as if they'd been waiting for me to wake up. After greeting me, they waited with gentle smiles for my answer. It almost felt like I was reliving a memory from the days before they'd become so busy. The sheer surprise was such that it took me a moment to find a response.
おはよう。
どうしたサチ？そんなに目を丸くして。
She's not used to this anymore.
だって今日は機械の音がしないし、それにお父さんとお母さんがこの時間に家にいるなんて。
そうだな。自分たちのしてきたことを考えれば、サチが驚くのも無理はないか。
True.
今までが今まででしたからね。
The two of them smiled sadly at each other, then turned back to me.
あのね、サチ、今日はサチの誕生日だから、お仕事はお休みにしたの。
今まで
They made
寂し
the
い思
effort.
いをさせてしまった分の汚名を返上させてもらおうと思ってな。
They're making the effort. They really are.
夜になって
They
ケー
realized
キを
their
食べながら
mistake.
誕生日をお祝いするまで、今日はサチと一緒に遊ぼうと決めた。
They recognized their mistake. They recognized they recognized. They recognized the mistake, and not maintaining that, balance of work and family. And, they're working to do something about it. I have to respect it. The words coming out of their mouths were exactly what I'd been longing desperately to hear for so many months. Felt so much like a dream that I very nearly pinched myself. Mom and Dad would be at my side again, like they used to be. Just like when every day was full of happiness, we could play together as a family once more. It was what I wanted all along. Even while I was playing with Yukun, I'd daydreamed countless times about this very moment. Now it was real. My parents were giving me the gentle, caring words I'd longed to hear. My heart should have been bursting with joy. Yet, what I felt instead was dark, intense anger, as though a hidden flame, long smoldering in some hidden cranny of my mind, had found the oxygen it needed to burst into a blazing wildfire. No matter how hard I tried, they completely ignored me, Why now all of a sudden? Because work. Do they seriously think taking one day off work is going to make me forget how sad I've been all this time? Good luck with that. Oh. Oh, I see where this is going. Yukun took their place, but now even he's gone. So why? Why now? Why do they think they can just... Cold, black bitterness spreading through my body. I lifted my head to give my parents their answer. Oh. Oh, place your bets, folks. How's this gonna go? Oh, I don't think they're about to get the response they were expecting. Yep, I was right. Oh no. Oh no. It's too late for Sachi. Sachi's not interested anymore. Oh, this is where the relationship between daughter and parents is going to take a turn for the worse, isn't it? I'm almost afraid to see what happens next.
別に遊んでくれなくてもいい。
Yeah, this is not what they were expecting at all.
私は一人でも平気だし、お父さんとお母さんが大好きなお仕事を休んでもらってまで一緒にいてもらおうなんて思わない。だからそんなに私の誕生日がお祝いしたいなら二人だけでやればいいんだよ。
I think Sachi is being a type A personality right now. If that's the right term for it. The instant those sulky words left my mouth, I bolted out of the living room.
Sachi!
待って、サチ!
They called out to me from behind, but I just kept running. Out the door, away from our house. Not that I was headed anywhere in particular. Anywhere would be fine, as long as Mom and Dad weren't there. I didn't want to see their faces. I didn't want to hear their voices. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me, my hands clenched tightly into fists, biting my lower lip until the sickening taste of iron filled my mouth. Ooh, jeez. As I fled, the only thing in my mind was anger at my parents. Looking back on it now, it wasn't much more than an irrational outburst of pent-up emotion. Yeah, it is. But still, rather than feeling happy at their promise to celebrate my birthday together, I was outraged at my parents for wrapping up all the sadness and pain I'd felt for so long into those bland words about feeling lonely. And in the end, my blind, aimless flight carried me to that familiar playground. I hadn't consciously thought about making my way here. If anything, I was intentionally trying to stay away from the area close to my home. At some point, I definitely passed a hospital much further away than this place. Even so, some unconscious part of my mind had guided me to this destination. The impact of the previous day's events must have been just that strong. I couldn't simply accept that unbelievably abrupt goodbye. As Yukun left, I screamed that I'd be waiting for him today. If I forced a one-sided promise on him, maybe he'd slip out of his house to see me. That selfish, childish hope was still alive inside me. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I looked up to the tall tower clock nearby. It was a little past 10 in the morning. Yukun always came to the playground about 1:30 on weekends, but I decided I might as well start waiting now. That way I'd be here even if Yukun came early. And if Mom and Dad showed up, I could always just run away again.
そうだよね。
Trying to disguise the pain and anxiety growing inside me, I forced myself to believe in this spur-of-the-moment plan. So she waited. I walked over to the swing set, where the two of us had always sat side by side, and settled into my seat. The day before, I told Yukun I would wait for him in this park. But it wasn't like he promised to come play with me. He hadn't even responded to my words. There was no guarantee Yukun would come to this park. Still, I had absolute faith that he'd show up eventually, and I was pretty confident I could wait patiently until then. But as the clock's hour hand made its way past the 5, and my vigil approached its 8th hour, even that childish confidence began to waver.
やっぱりダメなのかな。
Oh.
ゆうくんと昨日でお別れしなきゃいけなかったのかな。
The playground that had always felt too small for us suddenly seemed an unbelievably large and empty place. Yukun had told me clearly enough that he couldn't play with me anymore, that even getting outside would be difficult from now on. Could he even make it to the park if he wanted to? Having regained the ability to think rationally with the passage of time, my mind ruthlessly chipped away at my unfounded confidence. Finally, I arrived at the realization that I'd backed myself into a miserable corner. Once that timid thought passed through my mind, it was only a matter of time. The painful emotions I'd been covering up with my anger came bubbling back up to the surface. I was really mean to Mom and Dad again. They were gonna play with me, and I ruined everything. This isn't any different from last year. Even if I go home tonight, my birthday's just gonna be Mom and Dad yelling at me. With each thought, the anxiety and regret swelled up uncontrollably inside me. Before I knew it, fat tears were running down my cheeks.
お父さん、 お母さん。サチ。
When I squeezed my eyes closed to shut out the world, I saw my parents in my mind's eye, their faces gentle and kind. No matter how lonely they'd made me, no matter how much I tried to hate them for it, in the end, I still loved them both very much. Well, yeah, they're your parents.
Sachi!
And in the moment I finally understood, I thought I could hear those same familiar voices. Not in my memories, but somewhere nearby.
Sachi!
サチ
I raised my head with a jerk, indifferent now to the tears that continued to pour from my eyes. Outside the park, just on the other side of the road, I saw my mom and dad. From a distance, I could tell they were covered in sweat, that they'd been desperately searching for me. Mom and Dad are still Mom and Dad after all. The people I love most in the whole world. I should have known that all along. Why couldn't I have accepted them from the start? No, there was no longer any point in even thinking about it. I was wrong. Now all I had to do was apologize. All I had to do was jump into their arms and yell, "I'm sorry for being so selfish."
お父さん、お母さん、サチ。
Once the two of them noticed my presence, their expressions instantly melted with relief. I dashed out of the park, overwhelmed with happiness, and I heard a sudden roar of displaced air, like the sound of a fierce wind. The next instant, the world before me was filled with a colossal jet black blur. Oh my god. I was not expecting that. They were across the street from where the park was, and Sachi didn't look. Oh my god. I heard the sound of something colliding with something else, then screeching to a halt nearby. I had reflexively squeezed my eyes shut. When I timidly opened them, I was greeted with the unimaginable. Mom and oh no. Oh no, it wasn't Sachi. Sorry, I started assuming. Mom and Dad were stretched out flat on the road's surface, almost as if sleeping face down. Dad didn't even stir, a machine with a dead battery. Mom twitched convulsively again and again. A broken toy. The blood pooling under their bodies crept slowly across the orange-tinted asphalt, dyeing the road a dusky red.
何これ
Oh, that's even worse! That's even worse! Sachi didn't even get to apologize after she realized her mistake. Those agonized groans, so totally unlike any other sound I'd ever heard my mother make, filled me with a terror too pure and primal to express in words. My ears begun to ring, to drown out the unpleasant sound of the truck's engine idling nearby. With every moment that passed, my breaths came faster and faster. I couldn't fully grasp what had just happened before my eyes. Instinctively, I understood it was something so awful as to wipe everything that had come before into complete irrelevance. What do I do? What do I do? I have to call for help. Times like these, call 911 first. I was still capable of thinking about what I should do next. My body was frozen on the spot, physically rejecting the incomprehensible situation before me.
サチ
The sound of my name, I turned my eyes back to the ground. Was dragging herself slowly across the road towards me, desperately trying to communicate something.
お母さんお母さんお母さん
The sight instantly reduced me back to a panicked frenzy. All I could do now was shriek her name. Getting her trembling upper body ever so slightly off the ground, she slowly raised her face, and then...
サチどうして
Then she spoke those words. Instant, I thought I could hear something snap inside me. My body began to quiver uncontrollably. The world was covered in a black shroud. The split second after the buzzing drone inside my head finally went silent, I lost consciousness entirely. Apparently, a local passerby quickly reported the incident. It wasn't long before the ambulances carried us away. Not that I remember any of that. When I opened my eyes for the next time, A full day had passed, and I was lying in a colorless hospital room. This is deja vu.
サチ、目が覚めたのか？
I heard a chair scraping against the linoleum floor nearby. A moment later, a familiar face appeared before me. Her uncle.
ああ、おじさんだ。それより体は大丈夫か？どこかが痛かったり気持ち悪かったりしないか？
I gingerly moved my arms and legs several times, but couldn't find anything wrong with my body.
大丈夫。
そうか。よかった。
Uncle smiled broadly at my words, tears in the corners of his eyes. Still a little dopey from waking up, I felt a simple curiosity about the intense emotion so evident in his face.
ねえ、おじさん。何かあったの？
When I put the question into words, my uncle averted his eyes, his expression filled with reluctance and
お
pain.
前の両親はな、サチ、事故にあった。
事故。
Yeah. As I dully repeated my uncle's words, a memory that had slipped cleanly from my mind slowly re-emerged. A small park, dyed in the light of the evening sun. The smell of burning rubber, the sound of a truck idling. And finally, Mom and Dad lying in pools of their own blood. Hey, what's up, Brad? We've been in flashback mode with Sachi for a while. And, shit's getting real. The scene flashed before my eyes in perfect clarity. Reflexively, I tried to look away, but there was no escape. And the next moment, my ears were filling with that awful, droning buzz.
サチ、
So this is how she developed her PTSD. Yeah, if you're wondering what's happening right now, it was her 10th birthday recently, and she had been upset, that her parents had been so busy with work, after a bit they did for a TV interview, because they made some parts like for a shuttle that went into space or something. So, because of that interview they did, and because of that, they had gained notoriety and business had picked up pretty substantially. And they were a small business, so, they didn't exactly have, the access to the help that they needed to, keep up with the, doubled workload that they now found themselves facing. So they had to spend more time on their work, and it was only just recently, around the time of Sachi's 10th birthday, that things had started to settle down, that they didn't need their housekeeper anymore, and they wanted to start, making things up to Sachi, for how distant they've been with Sachi, how lonely she's been. But Sachi wasn't interested, because she had been spending her days, playing with Yukun, Yuuji, our boy Yuuji, because they met as kids, and they got to know each other for a while until something happened with Yuuji and he wasn't able to come play with her anymore. She didn't want to believe that Yuuji wasn't going to be going to the park to play with her anymore. So, instead of spending the day, her 10th birthday with her parents, she ran off and waited stubbornly at the park for Yuuji to show up. but he never did. And once Sachi finally realized her mistake, that she was being selfish, and that her parents were trying to do something nice for her, that they were that she still loved them, they showed up calling for her. But as her parents were making their way towards Sachi, they got hit by a car. They got hit by a truck. And we haven't gotten confirmation yet, but it's very possible they're both dead. Classic Japanese story. I feel bad laughing about that, but yeah. Truck car kills 50% of people in anime. So this is kind of a trope. Interesting. So yeah, that's what just happened. And now Sachi's in the hospital right now because she fainted at the scene. And I think this is where her PTSD developed, because we just started learning about that this episode. So I guess this was the incident that caused it. My field of vision grew slowly narrower. Excuse me. And a choking sense of paralysis spread throughout my body. Oh yeah, once you've experienced higher frame rates, you just can't go back. It felt as though my body temperature had suddenly plunged. A violent wave of nausea and a splitting headache attacked me all at once. Okay, so it wasn't that in the present time Sachi had been sitting out in the rain at the park for a day waiting for Yuuji. It wasn't that. Although that, that certainly, played a role in it. It's just this is how it goes for Sachi. And yeah, I would imagine, yeah, this, like I've said before, ever since I got this computer put together, just to kind of go off on a tangent for a second, ever since I got this beast of a machine that is my computer put together, I barely touch my consoles anymore. No joke, I barely touch them. They just kind of sit there until I need it to play something that I specifically have on that console that I want to play on the console. But yeah, I spend so much more time with my computer now that it's just what do I even need these for? Obviously I know the answer to that. It's a loaded question. Yeah. This thing has done wonders for me for the last year now. It's hard to believe it's been that long already since I got this thing put together. Or has it been 2 years? If it's been 2 years already, that's crazy. I don't think it's been 2 years. Honestly, so many weeks and months just kind of blur together.
おいサチ、大丈夫か？
No, I don't think she's all right, Uncle.
おじ
サチ！先生、サチが目を覚ましたんですが、急に苦しみ出して。
world grew dim before my eyes. I could vaguely make out my uncle shouting desperately for someone's attention. Wait, now I can't see or hear anything. Oh, I guess I'm fainting again. The instant the thought ran through my head, I plunged into nothingness. Later. It would be a full 3 days before I woke up again. Oh, wow, yeah, so... That's crazy. When the nurse noticed my eyes were open, she immediately called the doctor in charge, who conducted a quick examination on the spot. After determining that I wasn't so severely impaired as to cause difficulties in ordinary conversation, the doctor began to explain many things to me. Uncle Akiro came running over to the hospital, soon joined in as well. That day, Mom and Dad had been in a traffic accident right before my eyes. Yep. Sorry, kiddo. Just as I ran out toward them, a truck with a drunk driver behind the wheel had barreled through the intersection, ignoring a red light. Yep. Typical. They were hit by a drunk. Hit head-on by the massive machine, which had been traveling at 60 kilometers an hour or more, my dad died instantly from massive blunt force trauma. Yeah, it's always the trucks. It's always the trucks. Mom had miraculously survived, but at the moment she was still unconscious, fighting for her life in critical condition. When I learned all this, I didn't cry and grieve, and I didn't explode with anger against the man who'd caused that accident. The words the doctor used were really hard to understand, so a lot of the conversation went over my head. That probably had something to do with it. More than anything else, nothing about this situation felt remotely real to me. That night, finally alone in my darkened hospital room, I flexed my legs and arms thoughtfully. No matter how many times I tested it, my body didn't feel injured. I could move just as freely and easily as before. And maybe Dad was dead. Maybe Mom was lying unconscious somewhere in this hospital, but I hadn't seen either of them yet. So maybe everyone telling me about this accident was just lying. Maybe if I were to get up out of bed and head straight home, my parents would be waiting for me there. My thoughts persistently returned to these comforting, paper-thin theories. No. More importantly, the depth of my mind, a clear memory remained. Don't do it, Sachi. Instant my thoughts brushed against that fragment of the past. I could hear my heart throb violently in my chest. Don't do it. This time, the shrill buzzing that accompanied the similar incident 3 days earlier was conspicuously absent. In exchange, the most severe headache of my life fell upon me with all the suddenness and force of an avalanche. Yep, the trauma's hitting her. The sharp burst of pain, as if my body was warning me not to touch an open wound, robbed me of the will to think. Then I'll just stop trying. I'm sick of fainting. As soon as I emptied my mind, the headache vanished with astonishing speed. My breaths came easier, and I could feel my heartbeat gradually returning to its normal rhythm. There's something wrong with my body after all. Nothing like this ever happened to me before that day. As my mind began to reach a conclusion I didn't want to accept, I involuntarily recalled the agony I had just endured. If I remember what happened, that pain will come back. The ensuing wave of terror wiped all else from my mind. Pulling the blankets over my head in search of refuge, I waited for the morning to come. Later. Did that accident they keep talking about really happen? Several days later, that disbelief is still lingering in my mind. I was taken to visit my mom in the intensive care unit for the first time. After carefully disinfecting my hands with alcohol, the nurses dressed me up in a hospital gown just like theirs, and finally ushered me into the room. And just as they'd told me, my mother was inside. The person lying on the bed in front of me wasn't the mom I knew. It was a huge oxygen mask covering her mouth. Bandages were wrapped around her head. Numerous tubes were sticking out of her body, connecting her to all sorts of machines. Oh man. Intensive care unit indeed. I don't know if she's gonna make it, man. The sight reminded me of nothing so much as the Frankenstein monsters I'd seen in movies. But this was reality. That day, the accident happened exactly as they told me. And now my mom was sleeping in a nest of machines. Oh! The instant I finally perceived that undeniable fact as reality, I was struck by a powerful wave of nausea. It's happening again. The hospital room grew dark before me, and in that darkness, a fuzzy image flickered before my eyes, disappearing for the briefest of moments only to reemerge, like some pale, indistinct horror, bobbing up and down just beneath the surface of a muddy lake. Unable to endure the sickness swelling up from the core of my body, I vomited up the contents of my stomach on the spot. I was hastily carried out of the room by the nurse who had accompanied me. That I tried to return to the ICU numerous times, but the outcome was always the same. The moment I saw my mother in her hospital bed, I experienced severe nausea and was quickly removed from the room. The doctor took these events very seriously, and eventually forbid me from visiting Mom for the time being. That night, I laid awake in bed until well after the lights had been turned out, unable to fall asleep. I hadn't suffered any real injury, so sitting around all day often left me with too much physical energy. Sometimes I would go an entire day without feeling hunger, or lie awake in bed for hours. And today, the things I'd heard during the daytime were also weighing heavily on my mind. I lay in my bed, staring up at the now familiar tiles on the ceiling, and thought about my parents.
もうこの世界にお父さんはいない。
Unfortunately,
それにお母さんだって。
she might never open her eyes again. Sometimes I'd overhear my uncle talking about it with the nurses in lowered tones. Apparently Mom was sick with something called a persistent vegetative state. From what I could figure out, that meant the possibility she'd wake up again was really, really low. Mom's going to be asleep forever and ever. In other words, I'd never be able to talk to her again. A bitter frustration welled up inside me at the thought.
やだ。そんなの嫌だよ。
No. It's not fair, Sachi. It's not fair at all. But no matter how hard I tried to deny the reality, nothing would change. Even if my parents' jobs would no longer keep us apart, the blissful days I'd wished for would never return. understood the situation, the heavier my despair grew. Tears spilled relentlessly from my eyes. My mind was filled with a miserable new question. Why? Why had it turned out like this?
あの日は私の誕生日だったのに。
Yeah. It's a hell of a way to spend a birthday.
本当ならゆうくんと一日中遊んで、去年よりもずっと楽しい日になるはずだったのに。
Yeah. You didn't want to accept that it was goodbye from Yuuji. But you found out the hard way. And when your parents came looking for you, when they finally found you. I don't know. We've been in flashback. We've been in this flashback with Sachi for pretty much the entire episode, really. In reality, I hadn't been able to see him because of that sudden accident. Dad was dead, and Mom was sleeping forever. Everything I loved had taken from me in one horrible instant.
どうしてこんなことになったの？
Well, one could argue that it was... one could argue it was because, you had, run off and, found yourself, at the park. Because, you had run off after your parents, were trying to do something nice for you because they'd been so busy with work and all that. And they presumably spent, a significant amount of time looking for you. Excuse me. That it was, because you ran out on them. But I'm waiting to see if she, is going to come to that realization. But yeah, there's, a lot of ways you could answer this, why did this happen? Because you could argue a lot of things. This is kind of a butterfly effect moment. That, however, I can very much agree with you on, Sachi. It very much is not fair.
どうして？
When I squeezed my eyes shut in an attempt to escape the cruel reality of my situation, I thought I heard someone's voice in my mind.
ねえ、サチ。
Oh.
どうしてあの時家を飛び出してしまったの？
Oh, this is how nightmares are born. Oh dear. Oh dear.
どうしていい子にしていてくれなかったの？お母さんもお父さんもトラックにはねられて、
Oh.
とても痛かったのよ。
Oh my. Oh. Oh my goodness. Since the day I accepted that the accident had really happened, These feelings have been lurking unacknowledged in the depths of my mind. That accident happened because of me. Yup. Just like I was talking about. I was wondering if she was going to come to that realization. If she was going to blame herself because she ran out on them after they tried to do something nice on her 10th birthday for her. Because they wanted to make up for what happened on her 9th birthday. But Sachi didn't see it that way. Oh my goodness. I feel so bad for Sachi. Oh my goodness. If I'd listened to my parents and stayed in the house, they wouldn't have been in the street when that truck ran the red light. Even Yukun. I selfishly tried to manipulate him into coming to the park. Maybe that's why he didn't show up. Maybe he just finally got sick of me. No, again, he told you that he wasn't going to be able to come for a while because he has stuff in his own life going on. You just didn't want to believe it. In other words.
全部私のせいだ。
Oh. I just want to give her a hug, man. I just want to give her a hug. Ooh. Ooh, this is gonna be really bad, isn't it? Yeah, before we get to that though, Sergey, I don't know if you're still just chilling in the background. How are you doing? It has been a while since I've seen you around. I kind of took a hiatus because I was feeling very unmotivated for the last month and a half as far as like streaming went. I mean, I did do some stuff here and there, but I didn't really have the motivation. So I just decided to take a break unannounced. I probably should have said something, but that's not always how I operate. Sometimes I just kind of cocoon and I'm just gonna spend some time doing some stuff on my own for a while. Sometimes you just need to spend some time doing some stuff just for yourself, doing some things on your own. But yeah, how have things been with you, man?
何これ。
A dull paralysis spread throughout my body, very similar to what I used to experience before fainting from overexertion on the playground. But the venomous chill crawling up my spine clearly signified that this was something else entirely. Oh, yeah, that's Mudahar's most recent video. I saw that at work. I have no idea what that's about. I haven't watched it yet. Something shadowy and unfamiliar and malevolent was attacking my body. My heart thumped violently in my chest, and in that moment the world froze around me. The air wasn't cold, it was solid ice, so frigid as to cause physical pain. My clenched teeth began to chatter loudly. Mouth open wide, I desperately gulped down oxygen in little gasps, every breath a painful struggle. I was wrong. Something even worse is coming next. The voice rang out in my mind again, as I knew it would.
サチ、どうして。
And so, the nightmares began. What I tell you, people? What I tell you? This is how nightmares are born. Damn, man.
どうさっちゃん、今日は食べられる？ごめんなさい。食べられません。そう。
2 weeks after that horrible night, it had become my daily routine to turn aside the spoonfuls of food my nurses offered me. At night, when exhaustion overcame me, I was forced to relive the moment of my parents' accident over and over again. That sounds terrible, man. By now, I had completely lost the will to live. Yeah, so she was trying to starve herself, it sounds like. The nightmares didn't just play back memories of that day. They caused me physical agony incomparable to any suffering I endured while awake. My appetite disappeared in a matter of days, and of course I couldn't get any real rest. After about a week, my body had grown visibly frail. My natural energy was replaced with lethargy and weakness. 2 days after a concerned nurse reported the situation to my doctor, he came to my bedside and asked me about a bunch of things. Can you hear voices from nowhere in particular? Can you see people who can't really be there? I'm pretty sure the questions were mostly like that. From my answers, it took the doctor no time at all to announce that I was suffering from a specific illness. To summarize it in his words, a mental illness caused by temporary exposure to catastrophically intense stress. With that diagnosis, it became clear that I'd suffered my own wound in that accident. Previously scheduled discharge from the hospital was postponed indefinitely. Yeah, she's going to be spending a lot of time here. Not that my stay had produced any improvements so far. If anything, it was the opposite. The nightmares still tormented me relentlessly, and my treatment had progressed to medication and the IV tube. Through the tube, the nutrients I needed to survive were pumped directly into my veins. Through powerful sleeping pills, they induced temporary periods of oblivious rest. It felt less and less like I was living, and more like I was being kept alive. I'll keep that in mind. One day, this stagnant routine was disrupted slightly. I learned that I had been given permission for an outing as part of a new phase of my treatment.
それじゃあ、あっちの方を歩いてみようか。
I was given permission to leave the hospital escorted by one of the nurses, on the condition that we stayed well away from both my house and the site of the accident. With no particular destination in mind, we walked aimlessly around the town. Unlike the hospital, which was constantly filled with a sterile, antiseptic scent, the town smelled of the season, of people living their ordinary lives. In the distance, I could hear the chattering of grade schoolers on their way home. For the first time in weeks, I wondered vaguely how my friends at school were doing. The change of pace wasn't unpleasant, but my feelings were as dark and clouded as ever. I knew all too well that the physical relief of this moment was only temporary. Unless the doctor drugged me into unconsciousness, I'd see that dream again. The moment of the accident would flash before my eyes over and over. My body would react as if it were reality, twitching in my bed. If I wept in the dream, I woke up with my eyes swollen and red. If I screamed "stop" in the dream, I woke up with my throat rubbed raw. Worst of all, when the loop finally came to an end, my parents would raise their blood-covered faces from the road and curse me. An incessant, bitter rain of hateful words from which I was powerless to escape. Man. Yeah, that image is some nightmare fuel right there. Oh my god. That is terrible. Dad died instantly, and Mom lost consciousness soon after the accident. That last part of the dream was fake. I did understand that rationally. Every morning I awoke to find the burden of guilt resting slightly heavier on my mind. The border between reality and that cruel fiction grew indistinct. Have Yuuji helped Sachi with Michiru's request? I'm not sure I remember what I chose. I don't remember. It felt entirely possible that horrible nightmare would stay with me for the rest of my life. I had committed the sin of disobedience. That dream was my punishment for treating my parents cruelly when they tried to celebrate my birthday with me.
でももしそうなんだとしたら私はこれからどうすればいいの
That's a very, real question. What is she supposed to do now? It didn't matter how many times I apologized in my dreams. It didn't matter how much suffering those nightmares brought me. This guilt wouldn't simply disappear. It had already grown very nearly unendurable. My heart and mind were on the verge of breaking outright. And still, I couldn't find anything close to an answer.
誰か教えてよ
And as I whispered that plea to myself, I noticed a parent and child walking slowly down the sidewalk towards us. A mother, her face clearly troubled, and her young son yanking rudely at her hand.
ねえママ、カツオマンの人形買ってよ。だからお人形はこの前買ったばかりでしょ。ああ、それでもカツオマンが欲しいの。ささみ怪人と戦わせるんだもん。
Damn. I don't know how well it translates on the stream, but Jesus, this kid is loud.
もうまたそんなわがままを言って、いつまでも悪い子でいるとみんなマサヤのことが嫌いになって誰もいなくなっちゃうわよ。
Oh. The moment I heard those words, it was as though an icy hand had seized my heart.
やだ、そんなのやだよ。じゃあお人形は我慢しないとね。わかった。そうやってマサヤがいい子でいてくれればお人形もまた買ってあげるからね。
It's about the school. I guess we'll figure it out when we get there, huh? The mother and child passed by my side, their expressions completely transformed into smiles. Oh no. Sachi's not going to take this well, is she? Oh,
そうか
I see.
そうだったんだこうなってしまったのはやっぱり私のせい私が言うことを聞かない悪い子だったからあんなことが起こったお父さんもお母さんもゆうくんもみんな私の前からいなくなったんだ
I muttered those words under my breath, as if to persuade myself they were true, and in the next moment, I thought I could hear a switch being flipped inside my
だ
head.
ったらいい子になろう今度こそ本当のいい子に
So that's You know, how she became the way that she is. I can't see what chapter I'm on, but I know where I started the episode today. So I guess we'll find out at the end how much progress we made. If I had to guess, I would say we just finished Good Girl, Bad Girl. Because that sounds like an appropriate title for what we just witnessed. I'll be thinking about that. After that episode, my body underwent a mysterious change. I went to bed that night without any sleeping pills, but nonetheless reached morning without seeing the nightmare. Since the dreams began, falling asleep without medication had always meant a night of terrible suffering. This sudden exception to the rule surprised me greatly, but I didn't really have any idea why the nightmares would have stopped all of a sudden. Maybe I had just happened to pull the lucky straw this once. As it turned out, however, these worries were unjustified. The nightmares grew steadily less frequent, and my physical condition improved as well. Observing these changes happily, Nurse told me to keep it up. Don't let those bad dreams come back. By way of encouragement, I promptly focused on engraving those words into my mind.
悪夢を見ないようにしないといけない。悪夢を見ないようにしないといけない。
Every time I whispered the mantra to myself, a voice rang out in my head. You mustn't be disobedient. A good girl does what she's told. A bad girl doesn't. Not again. And when the voice fell silent, that scene flashed through my mind for the briefest of instants. As a warning. A reminder. I never, ever wanted to feel that way again. And so I was determined to become a good girl. If I'm a good girl, I won't lose anything. If I'm a good girl, maybe Mommy and Daddy will forgive me someday.
いい子にならなきゃ。いい子にならなきゃ。いい子にならなきゃ。いい子にならなきゃ。
Wow. Over time, my mind was filled with those words. When someone asked me to finish my dinner, I cleaned my plate, even if it meant fighting back nausea to stuff food into my stomach. Before long, I was even capable of willing myself into unconsciousness if someone told me to go to sleep right away after lights out.
はい、わかりました。
Whenever I said those words and nodded my assent, the nurses called me a good girl with smiles on their faces. And whenever I heard that phrase, I could feel my sin growing ever so slightly lighter, my sense of self ever so slightly weaker. It took some time afterwards, but eventually I was discharged from the hospital, conditional on my return for thorough regular checkups. The reason, naturally, was that my painful nightmares had grown extremely rare, my sleeping and eating habits had returned to normal. The rapid and dramatic improvement in my symptoms did quite surprise my doctors and nurses, but I'm fairly sure the adults convinced themselves my little trip outside the hospital for a change of pace had simply succeeded beyond their expectations. It did, not for the reason they thought. However, the doctors did think it best for me to leave my hometown and the many painful memories it held behind. It was decided that I would live with my uncle Akiro and his wife at their home in Niigata. I'd never visited my uncle's house even once until the day I moved there. But I didn't feel any anxiety about my new life in a new land. I did know that my uncle and auntie were kind people, and above all else, I had a clearly defined path to follow. No matter what my circumstances, I was determined to be a good girl. After all, my new conviction had virtually cured me of those unendurable nightmares. Since Uncle Akiro was kind enough to carefully prepare everything beforehand, the move went off without a hitch. It was decided that I'd transfer into a nearby school after my first week in Niigata. As it turned out, it was a modestly sized school with a fairly small student body. I was the first transfer student in recent memory and received a significant amount of curious gazes as a result. Heard she got caught up in something nasty. Didn't somebody say she got bullied really badly at her last school? No, it wasn't that. At times, I heard such rumors whispered in the hallways. Not that any of it bothered me in the slightest. I was entirely focused on making up for the time I'd lost in the hospital. I hadn't even touched a textbook for some time. A good girl does well in school. So as to keep myself from diverging with that image, I threw myself fervently into my classes, filling every waking moment with study and regretting the need to sleep.
おめえすげえな。なんでそんげん勉強できるが？
あっちで塾とか通ってたが？塾には行ったことないけど、勉強は嫌いじゃないから。
Nope.
へえ。じゃあサチちゃんって頭がいいがね。
じゃあ今度わからないところがあったら教えてくれさ。
わかった。
Over time, my diligent new approach to life changed the way my classmates viewed me. By the time we advanced to the next grade, many looked at me with respect in their eyes. In addition, on the theory that a good girl helps others, I would proactively approach those who seemed troubled and offer my assistance. Just by chasing after my ideal in this way, at some point a crowd gathered around me. As in my previous school, everyone in the class started calling me Sachan, and I made lots of friends who'd invite me out to play. My uncle, who'd been worried about how I'd adapt to living in the country, was very pleased by all this. I would imagine he is, yeah. You know? She's doing very well for herself. All things considered. My teachers offered consistent praise for my efforts in the classroom and helpful attitude. The harder I tried, the nicer everyone was, and I tried very hard indeed. The compliments and smiling faces reminded me of the happiest days of my life, when my parents had been kind to me. I grew steadily more convinced that my new way of thinking was correct. But such universal, unreserved affection for good people doesn't last beyond childhood. As if to warn me of that fact, when I advanced to the next level of school, I found the emotionally charged malice characteristic of adolescence waiting for me. After a few months, I'd gotten thoroughly settled in at my new school. Once again, I had attracted a crowd of friendly faces. For the most part, they asked to see my homework, for assistance in some extracurricular activity, or help with their studies. And as I reliably satisfied these requests, the number of people who approached me steadily increased. Apparently there's this super talented saint in Class 1C. Such rumors spread across the school, and I became something of a minor celebrity. And in time, I began to encounter those who found that irksome. Among them, a girl named Hitomi Nakano from my class. Most labeled her a delinquent, and she kept herself largely aloof from the rest of the class. So it came as something of a surprise when one day she suddenly called out to me.
ねえ小峰、今日の掃除当番変わってよ。
いいよ。
そう。じゃあお願いね。
It began with that trivial favor, no different from those I performed for countless others. But Hitomi Nakano repeated that request every time it was her turn to clean the classroom. Of course, I continued to readily accept. And one day, After this pattern had continued for some time, excuse me.
ゴミね、今日もお願いね。
いいよ。どうかした？
あんたさ、毎回掃除当番変わらせられて、なんとも思わないわけ？
思わないけど、どこか変かな。
だってさ、私は明らかにあんたのことパシリにしてるんだよ。
いじめはいじめられる側に自覚があれば成立するって言われているけど、だとしたら私にその自覚はないからいじめじゃないんじゃないかな。
それ本気で言ってんの？
だって人の言うことを聞くのがいい子で、聞かないのも悪い子でしょ。
Not in these circumstances, Sachi. This is a case where she's being used because of her good nature.
私はその考えに従ってるだけだから。
は？じゃあ何？あんた、私が永遠に掃除当番変われって言ったら変わってくれるわけ？
中野さんがそう言うならそうするよ。
Yeah, that needs to change about you, Sachi.
へえ、言うじゃん。じゃあさ、掃除当番は変わらなくていいから、一人でこの学校の窓どう？できないでしょ。
いいよ。
Although I accepted Nakano-san's request, she didn't seem particularly pleased. In fact, she clicked her tongue in disgust and stalked right out of the classroom. What was she so angry about? She didn't get the response out of you that she wanted. That's what she's upset about. Thinking the matter over, I took out a supply of cleaning implements from my locker. Just as directed, I made my way around the school cleaning the windows. After our classroom, I moved on to the other first-year rooms, the hallway, and the faculty room, making steady progress. Once the school building was closed, however, my pace was slowed somewhat by the need to hide from the patrolling teachers. Nonetheless, I persevered at my task. Even after the sun fell, I continued wiping in dogged silence. My arms quickly grew heavy from the sustained effort of reaching up to clean the higher windows, and after a few hours my shoulders were screaming with pain. Even so, I kept my hands moving. I had my directions, and I had to obey them. My personal circumstances were irrelevant. My body might ache or suffer injury, but neither mattered so long as it could move. Jeez. If movement were to become impossible, I would simply reassess the situation and attempt to find an alternate means to accomplish my task. Oh, what's up, Brad? Hold up. Oh, there's a new Corvette in the GTA 5 update. Yeah, it definitely looks nice. I like that red. I like the red. At the moment, wiping all of the windows in this school clean took priority above all else. When she found me in the hallway the next morning, still wiping windows, he told me Nakano's jaw dropped open.
あんた、何やってるの？
何って言われた通りに窓を拭いてるんだけど。
言われた通りにって、まさか本当にあれからずっと学校の窓を拭いてたわけ？
Excuse me, how did she not set off an alarm?
さすがに学校が広いから今日の授業が始まるまでにっていうのは無理だったけど、もう少し時間をもらえればちゃんと終わるから。
For a brief moment, her eyes went wide, and in the next, she roared with laughter.
あんた、間違いなくいい子だよ。それは私が保証してあげる。
ありがとう。
お礼まで言って。こいつ本物だわ。傑作。
ゴミね。窓拭きはここで終わりでいいわよ。そうなの？ええ。その代わり、今日からあんたは私の奴隷になりなさい。うん、わかった。やっぱりね。じゃあこれから私に対しては敬語を使うこと。それから私が何か命令をした時の返事ははい、わかりました。そうそう、それでいいじゃん。ありがとうございます。
I didn't particularly hesitate at the prospect of becoming a slave. If that was what she wanted from me, it was within my power to play that role. I had no reason to object. So having assumed the position of Hitomi Nakano's obedient minion, carrying out her orders became the central element of my new daily routine. I can tell things probably didn't go well from there.
ゴミね。あとはよろしくね。はい、わかりました。
I don't know, man. You tell me. I can't quite remember how many times we repeated this exchange. It happened too often for me to be sure. My more common duties involved completing her homework by proxy, helping her cheat on tests, and arranging cruel pranks against those she disliked. Yeah, Sachi. Sachi, you're being used. There were other requests as well. Every once in a while, she'd call for me in the middle of the night simply to mock me for actually showing up. After laughing with her friends, she would send me right back home. Alright. But that was alright with me. I was her slave, so all I needed to concern myself with was executing her commands. No matter how difficult the orders she gave me, through careful thought and diligent effort, I would always find a method of carrying them out. When I succeeded, her mood would often improve. On occasion, she even offered a few words of praise for her good girl. But more than anything else, simply obeying someone's instructions was pleasant in itself. While executing her orders, there was no need to think about anything else. The reason for those orders, the consequences of successfully carrying them out, anything and everything else was totally irrelevant. Yep. And this is why you're in Mihama Academy. Because, you have no sense of self, no sense of, any kind of self-respect. To recognize that what she's doing to you is wrong. And that you're being taken advantage of to do bad things. You can put a bug catcher on it? That is really goofy. What the hell? In those moments, and those moments alone, the burden of guilt I carried with me was lifted from my shoulders. And the image I wanted to erase from my mind more than anything else, stayed safely buried away. Therefore, there was nothing wrong about this. A good girl does what she's told. I believed absolutely in those words. For me, they had become a kind of faith. However, not everyone saw things the same way. After about 2 years as her slave, my master began to show some signs of discontent with our arrangement. Discontentment. When I answered her orders with a prompt, yes, certainly, and a nod, I could see a flash of irritation in her eyes. She was wondering when you would crack. That's what she was waiting for. Alright, let's see. Let's see. Since it's customized now, I'll take a break here to show this on stream. So here's the one that he just bought, or this Corvette. And then, this is the truck he's been talking about. And yeah. Not bad. Not bad, man. Not bad. Oh. Send me another screenshot when it is finished. I'd love to see it. Perhaps as a result, I soon noticed that those orders had begun to escalate in scale and difficulty. And when I returned to report my success, she'd respond only with a displeased grunt. Eventually, I asked whether I had done something to offend her.
何でもできることがムカつく。
And that was her admittedly rather irrational answer. Naturally, I then inquired whether I should fail every so often.
はあ？あんた私のことバカにしてんの？
No, for Sachi, that's a genuine question. For Sachi? Yeah, Sachi? This is gonna be kind of a weird comparison, but you know. How do I want to word this? How do I want to word this? Sachi is like, you know, a stockfish at its maximum level of playing strength in chess. And, you know, the more she tries, the more Hitomi, like, tried to outwit Sachi, you know, more she tried to get her to break, but she just didn't. She just continued to play perfectly all along. She got fed up with it, and then she's like, you know, do you want me to give you a chance? And naturally, she's like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? She takes offense to that. Blue sounds like a good color. This inspired only a more pronounced scowl.
でも失敗させてみるっていうのも。
Yeah, but then she actually starts to consider it.
じゃあさ、あんたに最後の命令を出してあげる。最後の
Final order, huh?
そう。2週間後にある中間テスト。あれ、なくしてよ。テスト？人の言うことを聞くのがいい子だって言うなら、こういうお願いも聞いてくれるよね。どうなの？やれるの？はい、私はいい子ですから。
Let's see how she does this.
言ったわね。いい？一度やるって言ったんだから、絶対やんなさいよ。後で。やっぱりできませんでした。すみませんって謝ってきても、私は絶対に許さないからね。はい、わかりました。
From the moment I nodded my head, it was perhaps all but decided that I would end up in Mihama Academy. When she asked me if I was up for it, I heard a voice screaming, "Don't!" from some corner of my mind. But soon enough, as the image of that day began to flicker its own warning before my eyes, that voice of caution was obliterated without a trace. There was nothing left to stop me. For the next few days, I frantically racked my brains in search of a method to get rid of the scheduled midterm tests. How about stealing the tests before they can copy them? No. Even if I were to find the originals, the tests would be recreated. At most, I would earn a brief delay. In that case, how about copying the tests secretly and bringing her the answers? No. While that might ensure her a perfect score on her exams, the tests themselves would be held as usual. Let's see. Yes, that is indeed a truck. I like how that looks. Very nice. Nice job.
じゃあ、どうすればいい？どうすればテストをなくすことができるの？
The more ideas I ran through, the more I realized the enormous difficulty of the task at hand. My focus grew slowly more intense and obsessive. My thoughts ran in circles. To make matters worse, as the day of the test grew inexorably closer, I began to see the familiar nightmares I had thought behind me. So, driven slowly but surely into desperation, I finally arrived at my conclusion.
だったら学校をなくしちゃえばいいんだ。
What the fuck did I just read? What the fuck did I just read? Yo. No fucking way. No fucking way. You're seriously thinking that, Sachi. I know that's a loaded statement. Of course she's thinking that. Sachi is absolute. But holy shit. Holy shit.
学校がなくなってしまえば、テストも授業も全部なくなってしまう。
You think? The moment I spoke those words, my ears filled with a high-pitched, almost nostalgic buzzing. My consciousness was shrouded in fog. When I came to my senses, I was standing inside my school. At my feet were a pile of kerosene cans, the same sort my uncle stockpiled as fuel for our heaters. Presumably, I had carried them from my house to this building over the course of numerous round trips. And indeed, my arms and shoulders were throbbing with agony. The situation was clear enough. Moving as though possessed, I emptied the cans all around the building in what felt like minutes, ignoring the protests of my exhausted body. And in the end, I stood in my classroom and set the fire. She actually fucking did it. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? The instant I dropped my match into the kerosene, flames sprouted up as though I'd flipped the switch on a stovetop. The fire spread rapidly down the fuse of oil and into the hallway. In the blink of an eye, the fire spread and grew, feeding off the wooden walls and desks, consuming the paper textbooks and cloth bags my classmates had left behind. The flames danced before my eyes. Even from a distance, I felt their heat on my skin. Just as I observed, it was becoming slightly painful to breathe the heated air. The shrill sound of the fire alarm began to resound throughout the building. The classroom I had studied only yesterday was consumed in a literal sea of fire. But even as a part of my world vanished before my eyes, I felt nothing in particular. Ah, look at it burn. The thoughts running through my mind, nothing but the disinterested impressions of a casual spectator. I'm stunned, man. I'm fucking stunned. Having determined that it would be impossible to stay in this place any longer, I carefully exited the classroom through the nearest window. As I lowered myself onto the grass outside, I could hear the sound of distant sirens. How far would the flames reach before that fire engine arrived? How much damage before they could extinguish the blaze? No, it no longer mattered. The midterm exams would doubtless be cancelled regardless. I carried out my orders. I did what I was told. I was still a good girl. Yes. Yeah, to normal people, what you just did was fucking insane. And, nobody would say that's something a good girl would do. But because of the childlike simplicity she views the world through, all that matters is doing what she's told. And as long as I'm a good girl, nothing else matters. And we're finally back with Yuuji. Wow. That might be the longest flashback sequence I've ever seen in my life. That was insane. Wow. I have nothing but I have nothing but respect for you, Sachi. God damn. Yeah, no wonder you ended up here. She does as she is told, to a frightening degree. Truly frightening. Because of the way that she thinks. I think I've talked about it on past, streams and outside of, the broadcasts on this series, but it always seemed to me like, she doesn't understand, larger context or, context clues or stuff like that. And now we know why. And wow. It only makes me respect her more as a character. Hi, Big Crunch. The flashback in Amane's route is 7 times longer. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like we are in for one heck of a trip when we get to Amane's route. One of these days. This is insane. Excuse me. This is absolutely insane. So, this is Sachi's past, huh? Although the fire brigade rushed to the scene and extinguished the flames before the building could suffer much structural damage, the main classrooms were reduced to charred wrecks. As it contained the highest concentration of flammable materials in the building, the faculty room suffered particularly severe damage, and the scheduled midterm examinations had to be postponed indefinitely. Rumors that Sachi had been responsible spread quickly throughout the town, and when interviewed by the police, she immediately confessed to total responsibility for the incident. However, her motivation was unclear, and testimony from her classmates revealed that Sachi had been subjected to chronic bullying. Her confession was deemed unreliable, and suspicion came to rest on her tormentors. In the end, the investigators couldn't find any decisive evidence identifying the responsible party, and the arson case was closed without charges. Wow. Wow, even with a straight confession, they just couldn't, believe what they were hearing. They're like, no. That, like, it was so irrational to them. They couldn't accept it. They were like, ain't no way, boy. They were just like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Is that right? I'll think about that when we finish Sachi's route here. I'll probably do a poll on YouTube and the Discord server for which route we do next after we finish Sachi's route here. So you guys will have a chance to decide which one you want to see next. Yep, I imagine, they took, Sachi saying, because who was it? Like, Hikomi told me to? But yeah, this is one of the most insane things I've ever witnessed from a story. This is nuts. Nonetheless, Sachi's aunt and uncle were disturbed by her confession and abnormal behavior throughout the incident. They had her receive a comprehensive psychiatric examination from a specialist, leading to a secondary diagnosis. Given her overall condition, they were told it would be ill-advised and potentially dangerous for Sachi to continue attending a normal school. Soon after, it was arranged for her to transfer to Mihama Academy. In other words, witnessing that accident had damaged Sachi's mind far more severely than was immediately apparent. Clearly, yeah. Considering what I know of her current mindset, I doubt she even regards setting that fire as a mistake. No, probably not. Because she did as she was told. And that's the only thing she cares about. Because otherwise, she sees the nightmares. And she doesn't want to see the nightmares anymore. No more bad dreams. Wow. Today, Sachi remains under the guardianship of her childless uncle and aunt. Her mother's still in the hospital, deep in a persistent coma. Damn, even after all this time. That's crazy. That would be a rough summary of how things currently stand. I toss the papers down onto the bench and look up into the sky. In other words, there's a lot more to Sachi than what I've seen so far. But, now you understand why she behaves the way that she does. And what led her to this point. What made her who she is. Back then, the only thing I knew was that Sachi's parents were busy with work and didn't pay much attention to her anymore. These documents are business-like summaries pulled from Ichigaya's database. I have the basic facts in sufficient detail to speculate, but it's hardly a comprehensive story. At the moment, Sachi's probably the only person in the world who knows the precise nature of the suffering that reshaped her personality so dramatically. Even so, there's one thing I can say for certain. She suffered an incredibly cruel and abrupt loss at a young age. These 6 flimsy sheets of paper couldn't possibly have contained everything she went through. Not even close, man. Not even close.
私はお父さんもお母さんも大好きでした。
I bet you did. From the way Sachi spoke those words, I think they were absolutely true. And that means she saw the people she loved most in the world fatally injured before her eyes. In the reports, her parents are described as a hard-working couple who cared deeply for their daughter. Their reputation in the neighborhood was excellent. Even without knowing the details of their relationship with Sachi, it's easy to understand that losing them would have been shocking and painful under any circumstances. Interesting, interesting. I'll keep that in mind, Sergey. Here we go. Finally, I can move snipping tool. I'm gonna put that into my stream notes folder. Order of roots and fruits. Relevant to order of routes in fruits with relevance to Yuuji's past. With relevance to Yuuji's. With relevance to Yuuji. We'll name it that. I appreciate it. Even without knowing the details of their relationship with Sachi, yeah, wait, I read that. What's more, it happened on her birthday. And from the dates, it must have been the day after I said goodbye. At the time, my friendship with the girl in the playground had become my strongest source of emotional support. If the same had been true for Sachi as well, in a single day, she lost her closest family members and her closest friend. So those words she's so fond of, good girl, bad girl, she tried to drag me to the playground with an arbitrary promise. She ran out of her house that day without listening to her parents, and all of a sudden she found herself alone. Her thought process isn't difficult to imagine. I was a selfish bad girl and everyone went away. From now on, I have to be a good girl and do what I'm told. Carried to an extreme, that's no different from turning yourself into an obedient, thoughtless robot. When the teachers tell her to work hard at her studies, she works hard. When some idiot tells her to wear a maid uniform, she never takes it off. Her own will and the intentions behind the orders are irrelevant. Performing them to the letter is the whole point. Doing what she's told is an end in itself. Sachi was only a child at the time. This simplistic, obsessive obedience was the sole coping method she could find. The only way she could escape her regret and guilt. No one has the right to blame her for that. No. Sachi stopped thinking for herself as a self-defense mechanism. Her wounds were so severe that she lost the ability to distinguish between right and wrong. That warped absolute allegiance to her principles culminated in the school arson incident. Yep, which my mate wants me to play after I'm done playing all the routes in this game, which is definitely something I have an interest in. To take the most extreme possible example, if someone unambiguously ordered Sachi to kill someone right now, she might commit murder without hesitation. The commandment she imposed on herself is a dangerous thing, a brittle wall, as likely to harm as protect. All things considered, might have been lucky that it was only arson. The more people know about Sachi's abnormality, the greater the risk of someone attempting to exploit it. An event like that was all but inevitable. For the same reason, it makes sense that she was transferred to this academy, with its small student body and limited contact with the outside world. Yeah, this is where she belongs. You know, she cannot function, you know, normally in society. The question now is whether I can actually do anything with this knowledge. I might be sitting here and analyzing other people's abnormalities, but I'm not a well-adjusted person myself by any stretch of the imagination. Can I, of all people, help someone regain normality? Let alone someone like this? If there's one thing that gives me hope, it's the expression I saw on Sachi's face back then. Thinking it over now, I'm even more firmly convinced that her smiles have always been artificial, forced things. But just that once, something was clearly different. Something that makes me think I can bring her back. Might sound like flimsy grounds for optimism, but at our first meeting, my master took one look at me and declared, "We can still fix this one." That's why I'm here today. Come to think of it, my master told me something once. Accepting a favor isn't anything to be ashamed of, kid, but not returning it is. There's no need to overthink this. From that perspective, it's really very simple. Back then, Sachi's presence in my life saved me, and today, I have a chance to repay the favor. That's enough for now.
変えようとしているのは小峰さんだけじゃないのかもしれないわね。
So she was watching from up above. I think that's a good place to leave things off for next time. It's a little bit earlier than I would normally close off, but not by a whole lot. And after everything we just experienced, I think I need some time to let, you know, everything I've just learned about Sachi soak in. Cause yeah, this was a really heavy episode. Like wow, you know, this went from like like simple, like childhood stuff with Sachi, just innocent fun and all that, to one of the most horrifying transformations of a character I've ever seen. Like wow, like the arc and the path that Sachi went down as a result of what happened, after the incident, and the way that she found to cope with it, and where that led her. Like man, this episode was nuts.
状況
Man.
セーブ
Yeah, I think I need to just let this sink in. Okay, so we're on the chapter White Ceiling. So yeah, in this episode, according to the list of chapters that I have for Sachi's route, we progressed through 3 chapters. And there's a lot more chapters than that left in this episode. There's a lot more chapters than that left in Sachi's route. So we've got a ways to go if this is the progress that we've made. Like, just looking at the raw list of chapters, we're not even halfway through. So yeah, we've got a few more episodes yet at least. Glad I came across that list. That's going to be very helpful. Going down the rest of the routes. That's going to be a very helpful gauge to have as far as where we are. But yeah, I hope everyone has nice dreams tonight after everything we just saw and got to learn about. Oh boy, yeah. And I think that's where we're gonna leave it. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. So until then, take care. I'm gonna figure out what the hell I'm gonna do tomorrow, because I still haven't figured out what I'm gonna do for Friday yet.